Hello, my name is No Sweat, and today is January 31st. It's about 2:30 in the afternoon here in eastern Kentucky, and it's 50 degrees. Thank heavens it's finally gotten warm. We've gone through about 4 or 5 weeks of zero temperatures and below zero and 10 degrees and snowstorms and ice storms. It's been rough. Feeding and watering the pigeons. We've had to break ice on the creek and dip water out of the creek and carry water up to the lofts on the hillside. My grandson's done all that. We about had to have dog sled teams to do it. Didn't lose a single bird throughout all the last 6 weeks. The birds stayed real healthy. I had them fat. They picked out corn out of their feed, and they're still fat right now. My plan is to talk a lot to you at the beginning of this, and then I'm going to take you through the lofts and show you what's happened since it's been 13 months since I shot the last video. You know, there's about 11,000 species of different kinds of birds in the world. Maybe more than that. Most ornithologists, people who study birds, they believe that there's as many as twice that, maybe 20,000 different species of birds all over the world, that a lot haven't been discovered. And out of the 20,000 species, I think there's something like 40 billion birds on the face of the earth. 40 billion birds. And that's a lot of birds. And out of all the birds, out of 11,000 species or 15,000 species and 40 billion birds, there's one bird that's more valuable and is the most valuable of all the birds. Let's see if I can find one. That bird happens to be what they call a racing pigeon. And a racing pigeon is a homing pigeon that's been physically developed and selectively bred to fly faster, and over a long period of time, 300, 400, and 500 miles, happens to be the fastest flying bird in the world. Peregrine falcons can outfly them, you know, on a dive, and a lot of birds can outfly for a shorter distance. But with a good tailwind and everything, all the conditions right. This little particular hen I've got here, she's 11 years old. And she's an integral part of my breeding program that I'll have this in 2025. She's one of my, what I call my pearlite silver hens. I've got a few of them that are 10 years old, 11 years old, 12-year-old, that are half sisters or full sisters, that are either down out of hardcore or out of 300, both of them being young birds that flew 600 miles. One thing that I want to start off doing today, of course everybody that knows me, my name is synonymous with Sions, and they're the most famous family of racing pigeons in the world, and they have the most rich history of all the racing pigeons in the world. They've won more first places and have been around longer than about any pigeon that's ever existed in the racing homer community. And I'm honored to be a person whose his name is synonymous with Sions. I got all my Sions from Charles Heitzman, and Charles Heitzman got his birds from Paul Sion in France, and also Robert Sion, who was Paul's son. Paul Sion died in 1946, right after the end of World War II, and Robert Sion went back throughout the southern part of France, where the French resistance was at, and collected some of the Sions that his father had given to them prior to the beginning of World War II, and started the Sion family back up again. I believe that the birds that he selected were a little bit different, probably more beautiful and handled better than what his father originally gave to them. He did just what I would have done and what most people would have needed, probably for a good-looking pigeon. Might not have gotten the same quality of pigeon as far as homing instinct goes. And that's always been a strong thought of mine. And I really try to keep birds that are more Paul Sion than Robert Sion. You know, one of the things that's really important, and very few people know really how to do it with pigeons, is how to mate two pigeons together. And I've got about 90 pair of pigeons this year that I'll be putting together. My birds are all Sions, all of them bred by me, parents bred by me, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, their great-grandparents, and for many generations. I've been going with pigeons now for going on 68 years. I caught my first pigeon when I was a little boy underneath the Irvin Bridge. I had pigeons given to me prior to that when I was 6 years old. There's pictures of me when I was a little boy with pigeons. And I started catching pigeons out in my front yard off the Irvin Bridge, and I caught one that had a Charles Heitzman band on it. And my grandfather was able to put two and two together, and I wound up meeting Charles Heitzman as a little boy in 1959, and got birds from him then, and continued to get birds from him all the way up until his death. Charlie Heitzman lived to be 91 years old, and everybody in his family lived old. They were Germans. And they came over, his father had come over from Germany. He kept the trunk of the passenger trunk, the big, if you've seen those that immigrants came over with from Europe, they look like big closets. You could lay them on the side, but you could raise them and set them up. He kept that underneath his main racing loft. He offered to give it to me at one time, and I wished I'd taken it, but I guess it just sort of rotted away. But he kept it up on some boards underneath his loft. He kept it dry. It brought back memories to him. One of the things people talk about with racing pigeons is how to mate two birds together. They talk about balancing in birds. They say, oh, you got to balance birds. Okay, what's that mean? It means a lot of things. It's not like weighing a piece of copper and a piece of lead over here and making sure they balance out. You've got to have, it's a 1,000 million things all coming together at one time that you've got to have going on in your mind to balance two birds together perfectly. Your objective is to raise babies out of them that are better than both parents, better than anything that's ever been bred before in that lineage. And very few people know how to do that. It comes a lot with experience, with having good teachers around you that are also very knowledgeable and honest people, and it also comes with a little bit of intuition. And there's always that little factor of luck. One of the things that people don't know much about is where pigeons came from to start out with. Like I said, they're a bird, and they originated about 60 million years ago. Everybody says, oh, they went back to the rock dove. That's true, but where did the rock doves come from? The rock doves didn't come in from outer space on a spaceship. And the rock doves went through a long, slow process of mutations to become the rock dove they were. Okay, so you wonder, what is a mutation? Well, mutations are one of my favorite subjects to talk about, because without mutations, there wouldn't be any life on this earth in the different forms and shapes that it is. It's through millions of years of slow evolution, mutations, changes. We are what we are. A frog's what it is. The different kinds of frogs, and lizards, snakes, all the different, everything, all the birds and all the pigeons. So you understand it when a cell, when two life forms come together to mate, and they give half and half of their cells, or half of their genes come from the mother, and half of the genes come from the father. And when those cells meet each other, and they will replicate themselves. Those two cells will, and they'll if the cells do not replicate themselves perfectly, then they have what they call a mutation. And even when a human baby is born, I think there's as many as 70 slight mutations, different kinds of mutations. You probably don't notice them. When we start talking about genes being dominant and genes being recessive, usually, just generally speaking, when you talk about dominant genes, those are genes that are expressed visually. You can see those genes If I have a red pigeon, you see it's a red pigeon. You don't know that it's got black genes in its background. But those are the recessive genes. They're hidden, and they call them recessive for that reason. So when you're looking at dominant things, those are things that you see. This is general terminology that I'm trying to express to you so you'll understand. And recessive genes are those genes that you don't see as a rule. I want to go ahead. I will get back into mutations. The reason I bring out mutations is because I've been breeding reds together for a long time. I don't know how many people have ever can say they've got 20 generations of red to red to red to red to red matings. But if you do that, I've had some reds that have come out with they're orangish red, pinkish red, yellowish red, some reds with white tails, some reds that's got polka dots on them, white polka dots. I get a lot of recessive traits to pop back up out of those red to red matings. If there's a lack of melanin in a bird, whether it's a parrot or whether it's a pigeon, we talk about powder blues and powder silvers. If there's a lack of melanin in the color, then that bird will, and that can come through genetics. It'll be a recessive trait usually if there's a lack of that melanin. If that happens, then you'll probably have a bird that's a lighter in color, and it'll be a powder blue or it'll be a powder silver. And once you, as the master, selective breeding, there's only two types of matings in the world. There is natural matings, where life itself slowly mates with each other, and there's slight little causes and changes and effects that causes it something to change, and then all of a sudden it's going that direction. Or you, as a pigeon breeder, and one of the reasons that Charles Darwin was so interested in pigeons is you as a pigeon breeder can selectively breed. You can do this with cattle or dogs or any other thing, and people do it all the time. That's why we have Jersey cows, and we have beagle dogs, and we have all these different types of other creatures. We've selectively bred for them. And so you're in charge of the changes. And it's much quicker when you're in charge of it, when it's selectively bred. So if I have a bird that has a lack of melanin in him, and it's a recessive trait, and I mate it to another bird and it has a lack of melanin, and it's a recessive trait, then I put those two recessives together, and I'm probably going to almost always start raising babies that'll take on the characteristics of both of the recessive parents. And it'll almost become a dominant trait. If I raise two powder blue bars together, I'm going to raise powder blue bars back out of them. I may not get them every time, but I'll get them a lot. Same thing with powder silvers, same thing with brick reds or whatever. But you know, like with my brick reds, I may make two brick reds together, and this happens as well. I may get a bird that comes out of them that's black check. I may get a blue check, and I may get a blue bar out of two reds. A black gene. There's only two genes with pigeons: black genes and red genes. There are other genes, but that's the two main genes that you deal with. And if I do happen to raise out of two red gene birds, a black gene baby, it'll always be a female. It's what they call a sex-linked trait, sex-linked color trait with homing pigeons. And it was something that was hammered into me when I was almost a baby by Charles Heitzman. He had his sex color linked chart. You know, if this mated to that, this mated to that, this will always be this, and this. And it's not a difficult chart to learn, and every pigeon man should know it. But surprisingly, I would say 1 in 10 actually do know it. And I keep hammering it to the guys on my videos and stuff. Again, today I want to talk, like I said, I've got about 90 matings that I've put together this year. I've worked on this winter. Still working on several. One of the big things that I'm excited about this year is that I'm going to be flying in the Florida Derby. A good friend of mine in North Carolina, Jennings, JW, He and I are going to go in partners. I'm going to breed the birds, and we're going to take the babies and send them down to Miami, and they're going to fly against 10,000 of the best birds in North America, and a lot of birds coming from all over the world. I'm hoping that Gerald Cooper in the Netherlands, I'm hoping everybody in the world, the Klaus in Germany, everybody, I hope they all get in the race. The stronger the competition, the better. And I feel real good about this particular one loft race. I think it's going to be what I call a clean, honest race. And looking at the quality of birds that I can see in the videos that they have, YouTube videos on the internet about the Florida Derby. You know, I mean, it's like looking at racehorses. After a while, you've been doing it for over half a century. I can almost see the quality. I don't even have to pick the birds up, and they've certainly got it. I have to brag on the Florida Derby at this stage in their existence. They really are something that I'm interested in. So I haven't been in any one loft races for a couple of years now, but I'm definitely going to get into this one loft race, and it being the biggest race. And maybe the most important and best race to get into in North America, I want everybody to stay closely tuned to watch what my family of Sions will be doing. And I want to stress that again, family of Sions. I may be the only person in the entire United States that actually has a true family of pigeons. There's a lot of hogwash by fanciers that are getting on the internet every 15 minutes saying, oh, you better not inbreed. Oh, you better not line breed. Oh, you better not do this. You better cross pigeons. You better cross them up. And they'll get out a chart and show you a picture of the pigeon. They'll say, now look at here. This bird's pedigree right here, it was a cross. I made it a Jensen to a Havness. And see there, look, that bird won. You can't argue about that, because that's the best bird in the world. And I happen to have another chart here. I got another bird here, and look here, it crossed, and it is a cross, and it won too. Man, proof in the pudding. I ain't gonna talk no more. I mean, I got it right there. I showed you. There's used car salesmen that do that, and there's people that sell stuff that salesmen do that stuff all the time. They have a selective amount of information they present to an audience to sell something. They don't want you to know the whole story. And certainly people that are crossing pigeons and have crosses, that's what they want to sell to you. A lot of these guys on the internet, that's what they do for a living. They sell pigeons. They run auction houses, sell birds 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get a cut out of it. They import and export pigeons all the time, getting a big cut out of that. They do all kinds of little ways they're getting kickbacks out of pigeons. And they're selling pigeons on the internet. And a lot of them are saying, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to get this pigeon, I'm going to help you. Everybody's going to help you. You know, we just came out of a presidential race. And thank God it's over with. That's all I got to say, because I got tired of listening to it. But it didn't matter whether you was a Democrat or whether you was a Republican. Both of them was going to help you. I think even the independent party was going to help you. And I don't know if somebody from the outer space was going to help you. Everybody's going to help you. The governor of Kentucky is going to help you. The mayor of your town is going to help you. Every politician you know is going to help you. And if all these guys was going to help you, and they've been going to help you, I'm 74 years old, they've been helping and helping and helping and helping and helping and helping. I don't know. It don't seem like we've had much help. And I think if anybody will stop and pause about pigeons, they might understand that. One thing you need to take in consideration, think about this for a minute. They say they got speed birds. Speed birds. That's just a red flag out on the used car lot when somebody uses that word, speed birds. A speed bird, what is a speed bird? A bird that flies faster than other birds? That's what you'd think. Are there any birds doing that? No. Look in the back of the AU yearbook. There's no speed records back there that went on last year, year before. Just everybody all of a sudden got some kind of bird that's out flying all the other birds. All the pigeons are out flying the other pigeons. This speed bird, this group coming out of Belgium or wherever they're coming from, they've got their speed birds. They're not speed birds. Their birds still flying 1,000 yards a minute up to about 1,800 yards a minute, depending on what condition they're in, what kind of tailwind they got, crosswinds, and how hot it was that day, and a million other reasons why they flew as fast or as slow as they did. You know, when they fly in these big races, these the Hoosier or the Victoria Falls or the Florida Derby, where you've got 5,000 birds flying with each other, there's not all of a sudden of them 5,000 birds that, hey guys, let's speed birds, let's take control of this race. We're the speed birds. And all of a sudden there's 50 of the speed birds, all particular one group of crosses, that all just jump out into the lead because of the crosses. And they're the speed birds. That doesn't happen. They'll fly one race. Anybody paying attention, they'll fly a race and they'll fly 1,200 yards a minute. They'll fly another training toss a week later. They might fly 1,700 yards a minute. They might fly an actual race and be 900 yards a minute. You know, if these crosses were doing all this miraculous stuff coming out of Europe, and all these other birds here in the United States, he did this and he did that, and he crossed this, and he mixed Campbell soup with a hot sauce, and I did all this different stuff that they do. Why is it they can't hardly get a bird to fly 300 miles if these birds were so good? Why is it we have these dramatic, huge, unarguable losses year in, year out, year in, year out, compared to 50 years ago when there were families of pigeons? There is no comparison. Why is it all of a sudden, they'll come up with a reason. Oh, well, magnetic field or it's a hawk or did something. But compared to the birds that we had that were strong families, the Stassers and so forth, and the Sions that were flying 50 years ago, compared to all this crossed up crap that you've got out there today that's been getting high dollars, there is no comparison. These birds are flying slower. You're losing more of them. It's a miracle if they make it to the last race. Most of the clubs today, throughout the entire United States, they're going to fly 350 or 400 mile races near the last, and half of them never make it to that. They have to stop the race program because they don't have enough birds in the club to fly a 300 mile race. They've lost them all. They lost them at 150, 200 miles. Oh, well, I don't know what happened. And, you know, and one of the things that I see about Sions, let's just imagine for a minute, because when I have flown my Sions in major races, it's very expensive. I'm not rich, and I can't pay $1,000 a bird to fly into Victoria Falls, $1,000 a bird to fly. If I've got $1,000 to waste or to gamble with, I'll bet on the Kentucky Derby. Instead of going, I mean, the odds are better, and I won't say any more than that, but that's what I'll do if I've got $1,000. And one guy told me, I'm not going to say his name, but he's an extremely well-respected, seasoned veteran in the sport. He said, no sweat, I'll tell you about one Loft races. He said it's nothing but a raffle. But he said they're a necessary evil. He said because the way the young people in the sport, the way they're brainwashed, and what they've been brought up now to believe in, and they're reading the magazines or talking to some other person that's just as worse brainwashed than they are. He said, all they talk about is one Loft race. One Loft race, one Loft race. And he said, you know it and I know it. If there was any truth or any validity in these one Loft races, these top flyers, I'm not going to throw names out there, you know, they wouldn't enter 50 birds, 60 birds, 40 birds, you know, $50,000 in entry fees. If you know, you used to even make fun of anybody that entered that much many birds in a race. That means they didn't know what they had. It was obvious they were playing numbers. If it really was a solid, good race and everything was fair in it, they wouldn't need to enter all that many pigeons. You could enter 10 pigeons or less if you knew your birds and if everything was right. But that's not the way it is. And the guys that have got a lot of money that are in these big races, they know that's not the way it is. They know it's a raffle, and they know if they've got 75 birds in a race or 60 birds in a race, they've got a better chance. You got that more, you got your eye shut, and you're going to reach in the bin, pull out a ping pong ball. You're going to hope, oh, I won the race. I won the race. And so, and the thing is, in these crosses, you have so many crosses now in the United States, people that don't have families of birds, that 99.99.99% of the pigeons in the United States now are crosses. One reason is because you don't find anybody that's had pigeons for going on 70 years. It'd be some of them brag, oh, I've had them 40 years, I've had them 50 years, and even they're probably not telling the truth. But you don't find anybody that's had them 70 years and has kept the same family together. One guy says, oh, you breed them to death if you keep that same group together. One guy, I said, did you ever hear of a man named Van Loon? Well, Van Loon for the last 45 years of his life never introduced a single pigeon. And I won't go on about how good the Van Loon birds were, but next to the Sions, I rank them right up there. I think the Van Loons were fantastic pigeons. And he kept a very strong, tight family of pigeons. And he would just smile at you if you started talking about crosses to him. I want to go back, just imagine things were equal in a race, in one of these big, where there was 10,000 pigeons. Just try to imagine that half of the birds, all wants a fair chance, just as the half, that 50% of them were of my family, of my Sions. And then have the other 5,000 of the 10,000, have them be crosses. And we take those 10,000 birds, 5,000 Sions, and 5,000 crosses, and let them go. Let them go at 400 miles. Do you have any idea what the results would be? Well, it wouldn't be that we got 3 birds back, we got 30 birds back on the second day, we got 100 birds back on the third day. That's the exact numbers that on some of these major races last year, some of the biggest races in the world, those are the actual numbers that they did get back. And it's been going on that way for a long time. And that wasn't with families of birds, that was with crosses. The thing about families is you can't find anybody today that even knows how to breed pigeons. Crosses don't mean you just take the same old birds and make them over and over and over again. A guy that's smart with families, he keeps a variation going on within a family. And I'm going to show you that with just these 5 pair of birds. Because we're going to visit my lofts. We're going to go into the lofts and everything else. But I'm going to show you different things that go on when you're maintaining a family of birds. There's just a whole world of stuff. And yeah, sometimes I want to keep just a pure, certain kind of bird going to keep my family a certain way. But sometimes I want to do a little deviation. Like this year, I'm flying in the Florida Derby in Miami. I'm thinking about, well, it's flat country, hot. It's going to be a lot of competition. It's going to be good, strong competition. I'm going to need alpha pigeons. I'm going to need birds that can take that heat. You can jump down and be right in the middle of training tosses every time. And so I've got a lot going on in the back of my mind about that. And I'm going to show you some of the birds that I've put together for that particular race. One of them is one of my favorite hens, and we just got her back. Thanks to JW, we had to pay a small fortune to get her back from Africa, but she flew in South Africa and finished 41st out of 10,000 of the original entries. And her grandmother, I called her 33. I called her the Ocala hen. She was a blue bar, dark eyes. Not black eyes, not a bull eye. Some guy called me the other night and said, you got bull eye pigeons? I said, no, I ain't got a bull eye pigeon. Anyway, it's a dark violet eye with like a green inner circle in it. It's what some of my dark eyed pigeons have. And some of my other dark eyed pigeons are usually dark chestnut eyes. It was those dark chestnut eyes that Charles Heitzman liked to breed out of so often. They have a beautiful appearance. They do look, they have a black, almost a black eye look to them. And people who know Sions remember back years ago, people talked about the black-eyed Sions. People, I'd like to get some of those black-eyed Sions. Because Paul Sion was noted for some of his black-eyed Sions. And I'll tell you, I was good friends with Charlie Heitzman, and he had a dark-eyed Sion, and he bred them every so often. I wrote many articles about Charles Heitzman. I had one of his chestnut-eyed birds in color on one of the Pigeon magazines, and he loved that picture because I'd taken a close-up of that chestnut eye, that dark eye, and he swore to me, so Robbie, that's exactly the eye I like to breed to. Of course, Charlie Heitzman's eye, without getting into eye signs, the main eye, that color that he liked to have, and Charlie flew, for a long time and was very successful at long distance. His birds were very successful all over the world. He liked what I call a red-orange eye. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. A pigeon basically with a red eye It's not a violet eye or some variation. It's a red, orange eye, red, orange, and yellow. Those colors are mainly in the eye when you just first glance at it, not looking particularly for eyesight. That was what Charlie liked, but he liked to cross that eye with a brown eye. So here we go. I'm gonna start talking about balancing pigeons and mating them together to get the best production you can out of them. You know, and so I'll start with summertime. And summertime, I've got her right here, and I put her with a pigeon called the Maltese Falcon. And anybody that's a Humphrey Bogart fan, which I love Humphrey Bogart, and I couldn't love him no more than, you know, Casablanca and stuff, but I loved him in the Maltese Falcon. And so I named a pigeon. You know, the Maltese Falcon looked something like this. And when I bred the Maltese Falcon last year, I raised 1,000 Sions last year. You know, I love it when I pick up a pigeon. There'll be somebody, if you've got on the internet, where they can make comments. That's, oh, he don't know how to handle a pigeon. You see, he grabbed that old pigeon. He don't know how to handle that thing. I wouldn't know how to handle a pigeon. Why, no. Ain't no way I know how to handle a pigeon. You know, there's one guy on the internet, and he's got a lot of acclaim. People just fall down, roll over like earthworms when he speaks. It's like the clouds part and stuff. And he's been advertising on the internet that he handles 1 million pigeons a year. 1 million pigeons a year, he says. He picks them up. He said, that's how I picked out one of my great champions. He said, I was handling 1 million pigeons that year, and all of a sudden one of them hit my hand. I was like, electricity, karma, something's hit me. This is the pigeon. This is the best one out of that 1 million pigeons. And he said, daggone it, I was right. All the babies I raised out of that pigeon, while they flew upside down, backwards and sideways, and did a loop-de-loop over the moon. You know, you can't help but respect the guy. He's a natural-born salesman. And I thought to myself, well, how many seconds are there in a year? And I got to thinking, you'd have to handle a pigeon. I'm trying to remember what it was. You had to handle a pigeon, I don't know, was it once every 5 or 10 seconds? What was it, Lance?
5 seconds.
Every 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds for a year. You have to pick up a pigeon and hold it and do all this stuff with it. Grab another one 5 seconds later. I'm talking about no let up. You'd have to do it in your sleep. You'd have to do it while you was driving a car. You'd have to do it while you was cooking bacon that morning. You'd have to do it while you'd be drinking coffee and handling a pigeon. You'd filling out your taxes. They might ask you, honey, I gotta handle a pigeon. Every 5 seconds, this guy's been handling a pigeon. And he says he's handled a pigeon, 1 million pigeons this year. I wouldn't call him a liar. He's very good. That's all I gotta say. I haven't handled 1 million in a year. You know, I might try to beat that guy. I might try to handle 5 million. I'm gonna handle one every second. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. This is all in slow motion, what you're seeing right now. Anyways, this is the Maltese Falcon. And the Maltese Falcon, as soon as this bird came out of the nest, because he's got an unbelievable pedigree with him, but he had unbelievable wings. Look at the length of that wing. Of course, Heitzman was huge on wings, and that's in relationship to his body. He was a total alpha male. He was wanting to whip his mother and daddy before they got out of the nest, and beat up his brother too, and his half brothers and any other thing. He's that kind of a pigeon. He's got that big thick neck on him, big old bull neck I call it, big heavy hackle, and he's got a real beautiful light violet eye that I like to play with. Tight vented, closed back, doesn't weigh an ounce. Got that cotton body, that balsa wood body, single tail, all that stuff that everybody whoops and hollers about. But I'll tell you something. Another guy called me the other night and he was saying, has that pigeon got a split throat? I don't want no pigeon unless it's got a split throat. What do you think about split throats? I said, well, buddy, what's it good does it do if a pigeon got a split throat and don't know how to come home? What good does it do if a pigeon's got a long wing and it don't know how to come home? What good does it do if a pigeon's got tight fence and it doesn't know how to come home. What good does it do if a pigeon's got a closed back and it don't know how to come home? Rule 1 with pigeons, racing pigeons, is you got to have birds that have a good homing instinct. And how do you know if a bird's got a good homing instinct? You got to take them out long distances and let them go. About 300 miles. Everybody takes a bird out 300 miles and hopes they get them back. They might get, 1 out of 10 back or something. And they'll, I got my bird back. If you just do what everybody else does, you're just like everybody else. So what I've been doing for years, I took the birds 500 miles. You go 300 miles, I'll go 500 miles. You go 300 miles, I'll go 600 miles. You go 300 miles, I'll go 700 miles. 4 times I've let birds loose at 700 miles. Well, let's see now, 700 air miles, where's that put your bird at from here? That puts it down at Disney World. And I've had the fencers right down with me when I let the birds loose at Disney World. A long way. They got to fly all the way back up through Florida, all the way back through Georgia. Got to watch those Georgia State Police. They get going too fast. Anything over 55 miles an hour, they get a ticket. So I tell them birds slow down. They're going through Georgia. Then they got to hit Tennessee and go through the mountains, Smoky Mountains. They don't call them Smoky Mountains for nothing. Everybody up there's got a cigar lit up. But that's the Maltese Falcon. I thought he was the best bird I raised out of 1,000 pigeons last year. All right, I'm showing you. He's a medium size, not really what they call a big bird. He's medium size, and in the hand, he's medium again. Medium length keel. Put him up here. I kept him in the back of my mind. Man, he's a great pigeon. He's a great pigeon. He's got to have the right hand for him. What's he? He went to a top roost, picked out a top nest, all that, everything those kind of pigeons do. And so when we got summertime, when JW finagled around, the long story about getting summertime back. The guy who had summertime bought her in Africa in an auction at the end of the race over there. We didn't get her. And the guy that got her had a heart attack and dropped dead a few years later. And his wife sold all the birds to another guy in Africa. And that guy in Africa wrote to me asking, did I have any records on summertime? And he didn't have any because that bunch in South Africa closed shop, took everybody's money and shut and disappeared. And I said, I didn't say anything. I said, would you sell summertime? And he said, yeah, I'll sell her. And so he put a war price on her. And I called up JW, and JW said, let's get her. So we paid his price. He didn't want us to send money to Africa. He wanted us to send money to his daughter that was going to the University of Florida. So JW sent money down to her. Well, after she got the money, all of a sudden the guy that had summertime disappeared. We couldn't contact him anymore. I sent emails, made phone calls, talked to his wife. I barely can speak English all of a sudden. And everything else, we couldn't get this bird. Well, JW said, I'll tell you what, for about $10,000, I'll contact the president of the University of Florida, and I'm going to tell him he's got a student that has basically stole $10,000 off of us, and we'll see how that rides with her. I think that's theft. So he let that man know that. JW slick. He let that man in Africa know that he was getting ready. All of a sudden, we found summertime. She showed right back up. And they shipped her back to the United States. She wound up back in my hands. I got her in my hand right now. This is her. There's her band number. Whatever it is, I know it, but I'm sold now. What's it say here, Lance? I can't read that. 18160. 18160.
AU 2018 KY.
2018, it's 7 years ago. Of course, KY, that was the bands that Charles Heitzman had. And my first 100, 200, or 300 bands that I get every year at the start of the year are all KY bands. I keep that in honor of Charles Heitzman. I am the KY banded man. If you get a KY banded bird, you know automatically it's a Sion. You know automatically it's down from Charles Heitzman Sion. You know automatically that no sweat bred it if you see KY on the band. But I do get AA bands, ARPU bands. Sometimes I'll get poise bands. I have other bands as well. When you got 1,000 birds, I go through a lot of bands. So I got summertime back. You know, and when I got her back, she's a little bit, she's not a powerful bird at all. Vents are very average, not real tight. She's a little bit slightly open in the back, which I never keep a bird that's open in the back, but she is. And she had a completely different eye than the Maltese Falcon. I'll show her what your eye is. Here's her eye. It's what they call a violet eye. A lot of people, love that violet eye. Been very successful, a lot of people. You know, I'll tell you a little something going back to genetics. You'll see right here on her, see a little white dot where my thumb's at? Right behind her eye. We call that a tick eye. Tick, T-I-C-K. Little, it's just a little white feather. Well, her grandmother that flew back from Ocala, the 700-mile hen, she had that blue tick eye. And she's identical to her grandmother. Don't look like her mother. But I can show you pictures of her grandmother and show you pictures of her, and you think it's the same bird. It has that carrying this like a birthmark. I've got a little birthmark my dad had, and my grandson's got that same birthmark on his stomach. And she's got that little white tick eye on her eye. When I got her, I thought to myself, you know, I've got to have the right pigeon for her if I'm going to make something really raised that's going to be a great pigeon out of them. She's got that homing instinct. She doesn't handle all that good, but she outflew everybody. So I'm thinking, you know, because her grandmother had that 700-mile homing instinct in her, I knew she passed it down to this bird, and that's why that bird was beating all these crosses and all these other birds. This bird, out of that solid family of bird that had strong homing instincts, out of that crossed up crap. So I thought, I got just the bird for this pigeon. Let me show you. And I put her with him. Everything that she's weak in, he's strong in. He's got a better wing than she does. He's got a better body than she does. He's got better vents and back than she does. He's even got a little different, more powerful personality than she does. And I thought, man, them's the two. He's got a completely different eye than she does. And that's what they're talking about when you balance pigeons together. And I raised 12 babies out of that pair last year. 6 of them were what I would say was perfect pigeons. I've got 2 late hatches. And they've raised 2 in late December this year. Then I'm sending those to the Florida Derby. I hope everybody will watch for those 2 birds. Out of Summertime. You know, the reason I call her Summertime, that was a song they played at my mother's funeral. That was her favorite song. So it's a very powerful song when I hear it. It means a lot to me. I love the mating. Again, it's a balance. I will show you out in the light here if you can. Again, easy about it. This is what they're talking about when they're talking about balancing birds. I told you about what he has and what she has. When you mix those 2 things together, you know that there's going to be some that'll take after him a little more. There's going to be some that take after her a little more. What you want to try to do is get those birds that have the best of both parents. And if you do, you might have a bird that's better than both parents. And if you're a guy that can breed pigeons that are better than both parents, then you're one of those rare, really good pigeon fanciers. Because most guys just try to breed birds that are just as good as 2 champions, not better. I'm not satisfied with that. Here, baby. Oh, I don't know how to handle a pigeon. I need to handle 2 million of them a year. Let's see. Come here. Watch out. I want to show you on the eyes. Going back to balancing, because people talk about balancing, but they don't go into detail explaining about balancing. I don't know if you can see the difference in the 2 eyes. His light eye and her dark eye mixed together. Can you see that? I hope you can. But that's part of the balance. I'm not an eye sign person. There's only been 3 things in science that has scientifically been proven as to why pigeons come home, and eye sign's not one of them. Elephants come home from long distances. Salmon they come back. All kinds of creatures come back with great homing instincts. And their eyes play very little role in most of it. Get up there, big boy. Here, you don't calm down. I'll put them back together. They'll probably lay pretty soon. Earth's gravitational fields, magnetic fields, has been scientifically proven to play a role in homing. The sun's position in the sky has been scientifically proven to play a role in birds coming home. And smells. The smells coming up from an area coagulated together, mixed together, they have been scientifically proven to help pigeons be able to navigate home the way to come home. God help the pigeons that have to come home to Irvine, Kentucky, my hometown. I can only imagine what the smell must be like that comes up out of eastern Kentucky that those pigeons have to smell to get back. Of course, they could probably recognize that smell. You know, I watched a movie called Kelly's Heroes years ago, and one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, there was a guy from Irvine in it, from my hometown. Harry Dean Stanton is a very famous movie star. And Harry Dean's in Kelly's Heroes, and at one point they're attacking these Germans, and this mortar hits an outhouse where they're fighting, and this outhouse explodes all over them, and they come up out of this hole and they start sniffing each other. And Harry Dean looks over to Owen, and he looks at him. He says, "Sort of makes you homesick, don't it?" He said, "Yeah." And so I love that scene out there because he's from Irvine, and well, the outhouse blew up on him and got homesick. But that was one. That's what I'm talking about. And pigeons do use smell to come home. I could go into great detail explaining why. But they do. That's the three reasons. Eyesight has been proven not to have a hoot and hand of pigeons being able to come home. There's no guy, I don't care who it is, Pipe, whatever his name is, Pipe the Weird, or anybody else that wants to say, "Oh, you got 9 pigeons. Oh, this pigeon down here, that's to be your first bird home from 500 miles, because I'm looking at his eye on it. Look, I seen his eye." That don't happen. I mean, oh my goodness. All right, let's go into another pair. I love this pair. This is a pair that I've got all in mind for Florida. This is my little bitty strawberry mealy cock. I've got 2 strawberry mealies. The favorite racing bird of Paul Sion, little Rosalette. I'm probably mispronouncing it. I don't, in Eastern Kentucky, I'm not too gifted in French. But this is what they call a strawberry mealy. It's a mealy. I'll bring him outside. Here's this particular bird's, here's his pedigree. I got his pedigree right here. If you can just zoom in on it, just that right there. Hold it right there. You can see Seagull was his daddy and Sunshine was his mother. Then you go back. You got Hardcore Junior, Little Chattanooga, Hardcore Junior. See, I'm line breeding. And who am I line breeding to? Hardcore. Hardcore there. Hardcore there. Hardcore there. 3 times Hardcore's in his bloodlines. And where did Hardcore fly? He flew 615 miles as a young bird. My first bird back out of 100 and about 45 pigeons that I let loose one morning in Florida. I got one bird back early the second morning by himself. It was a little bitty cock just like this. Except he was a silver, not a strawberry mealy. This bird, with that bloodlines in him, the other birds in there too. When I start talking about Resolve, 600-mile young bird, Chattanooga, 600-mile yearling, but she had and long wings and all these other birds. Now he's kind of got a dark that's almost a Heitzman, that dark chestnut eye with that yellow inner circle and stuff. One of the things that Heitzman looks for. But Paul Sion, best bird he ever had 34 first places. Again, you see a bird with a wonderful wing in ratio to into his body. Look at the length of the body, look at the length of the wing. So, you know, when this bird brings his wing down, Two of them, you know, it's flying with ease. One of the things that really gets me on pigeon videos, let's go back in, I'll show you. Where's that? You've got these jokers that have had pigeons for 5 years, some of them maybe 10 years. All of a sudden they're experts. And what they do, they grab a pigeon out there and go, oh, look at this bird, look at this bird. Look here, and they'll take him. See that? Look there. They'll hold him like that. And then they'll go, whoosh, look at that wing. I got that wing out there. Don't know why I got it out, but I got that wing out there. Look here. I did it again. I got the wing out. Look, I did it again. And whoosh, look at that. Look at that. And all of a sudden you're like, daggone. That guy, he pulled the wings out. He pulled that. Did you see that? He knows them pigeons. How many times have you seen that on videos? I'm like, my God. Is anybody ever going to stop pulling the wings out on those poor old pigeons? Do they even know what that it means? Pull that wing out. I got to pull that wing out. Well, I pulled the wing out just to make y'all happy. All right, here we go again. And you see him. That's my little strawberry mealy. I've only got two. He raised a strawberry mealy last year. That's even heavier strawberry mealy than him. Beautiful. He raised me 3 mealies. I've kept one of them. One guy was giving me a hard time about one of them because I didn't send him the pedigree of it. I want to tell you about pedigrees here in a minute. Here's who I've got him made it to. Oh my goodness. This is my little 11-year-old hen. Her daddy flew 600 miles 5 times. Look at the eye on this little hen. You can see it. Look at that light. It's almost a gray eye. She's just like her daddy. I wouldn't take a fortune for this hen, for her breeding potential. She's just such a solid little pigeon. Little hen. Just perfectly built. Pull that wing out. I got the wing out. But more than that, she's just a perfect pigeon. Perfect vents, perfect back, perfect personality. I wouldn't have had her 11 years if she wasn't perfect. She's carrying a little weight on her right now. And she loves the mealy. I already know what they're going to breed. They're going to breed light-eyed pigeons that are going to be little small silvers. And they're going to be strong, long-distance birds. And I'm going to put those in the Florida Derby. Why wouldn't I? Well, you can see how nice he is. I tell you what, if anybody knows Sions, that thinks they know Sions, the history of them gets out the old Heitzman book or something about Sions, they're going to find that strawberry mealy cock that I talk about. The La Rosalette, 34 first places. There he is. That's family of pigeons. You know, I've won myself over 1,500 first places with a family of pigeons. You want to see pure Sions? You're looking at them. You want to see the... Well, you can see how nice he is. I tell you what, if anybody knows Sions, that thinks they know Sions, the history of them gets out the old Heitzman book or something about Sions, they're going to find that strawberry mealy cock that I talk about. The La Rosalette, 34 first places. There he is. That's family of pigeons. You know, I've won myself over 1,500 first places with a family of pigeons. You want to see pure Sions? You're looking at them. You want to see the Sions, the old Sion types that were really winning back in, but can win today too? Right there it is. There's 2 Florida Derby parents. Birds that yeah, he's talking to her. He's like, when are we going to get back to the loft? Instead of being Hollywood stars. They don't look all that magnificent sitting there. I'll tell you what, it's the babies out of them. I know what those babies are going to be able to cut through the sky. You know, birds can have great eyesight. If they don't have a homing instinct, who cares? You know, if a bird, some of the best birds that I've ever seen had open vents, open backs. I had my long lifetime friend, Gary Stone up in Cincinnati, he had a silver Horman hen. And when they flew that 400-mile race up there all the time, she would win all the time. And she handled like a bowl of oatmeal. You put her hands in, your hand just kept just falling. She had a vent that you could put a basketball in. And her back was open and everything, but boy, she had a homing instinct. And that was a great pigeon. And that's what you look for. And that's what I have worked for. And the way you find a great homing instinct, again, is by flying long distances, because the homing instinct takes over then. Anybody can, once you get the good homing instinct and hang on to it, you can start breeding for aerodynamics. You can breed for the tight vents and the closed backs and something's going to cut through the air and be physically strong. You want to breed the most perfect pigeon that you possibly can, for the main reason you don't want to give anybody that's flying against you any advantages. You want to have all the advantages. And physically, you want to have all the advantages. And you want to have all the advantages as far as the ability to come home. That's why, Charles Heitzman said that. I've told this story several times, but Heitzman, before he died, a few years before he died, we were sitting out on the steps of his main racing loft, a big long flight of steps that went up to it. We were sitting out there one summer afternoon, and he said, "Robbie, tell you a little secret about breeding." He said, "I always try to breed out of birds, young birds that flew 500 miles. He said, "I have had such success with babies that were out of birds that were out of 500 miles. Young birds, not yearlings and old birds." He said, "Even if a young bird takes 2 or 3 days to come home, it's still showing that it's got a good, strong homing instinct." And that has stuck with me all these years. Here I am now, might as well say mid-70s, and I still believe that's stronger than any single thing in the homing pigeon world. You can talk about wings and fins and keels and throats and backs and feathers and everything. If they ain't got a homing instinct, what good is any of it? And like I said, you've got to go back to somebody that's got pigeons that's got good homing instincts. You've got to find somebody that flies long distances. Who are these long distance people in the United States today? Duh. Let's see. We'll go to another mating. This pair I call my dream pair. I just put these two birds together 2 days ago. Lance and I picked them out. And so he likes her. She's still debating. She was mated to another pigeon, or getting ready to. And I broke that up. So this cockbird, oh my God. And I'll tell you the reasons I put these two together. It's for Florida Derby. But I don't have a bird with any better conformation than he does. And he's classic, Sion. I like the lights finally coming down. But look at that eye. You want to see what Heitzman looked for in an eye. That was it. That's that red, orange, yellow eye I was talking about, without getting into eyesight. And I'll just tell you, without me having to pull his wings out and sing and dance and all that stuff. These guys do, I'll pull a wing out, and everything else. I don't have to do that. This bird handles as fine a pigeon as you. The flesh tone. The flesh up against the keel is perfect. Everything on this bird is dead perfect. And he's a little shorter bird. I think he's probably going to be a great middle distance long flyer. Look at the wing on this bird too. That's a high quality of feather in him. Beautiful pigeon too, on top of everything else. He's gorgeous. An absolutely gorgeous pigeon. And of course the Sions are known for being beautiful pigeons. I mean, if you're going to have to look at them and play with them all your life, you might as well have one that's good looking. If you're going to marry a woman, you might as well get one that's good looking. I mean, she might be able to cook and wash and do all that stuff. It don't hurt if she's good looking too. So that's the way I feel about these pigeons. He's gray back, what we call gray back, and got all black toenails. If you get into, if you're a color fanatic, they say, oh, color doesn't matter. And 99% of the birds that fly in these races are all blue bars. Color doesn't matter. Somebody's lying. Let's see. That's the cock. He's a medium-sized cock. He's a little bit short-statured, and he's dead perfect. Very much an alpha. I sold his mate. Went to a man in California not too long ago. A very fine pigeon. So he's been without a mate. So I've got him. I'm putting him up here. You get up there, big boy. Sit down. Oh my God, he's a gorgeous pigeon. Oh my God. Oh, you sorry. You walk into Loft and see birds that look like that. You walked into somebody's loft that knows a little bit about birds. Here's the hen. One thing that I liked about her, she's like he is, except she's a girl version of him. And that's part of, sometimes, that's another one of the paths that you go down when you're maintaining a family. Sometimes you want to keep birds that are very similar to each other. You'll notice I did a balance act with Summertime and Maltese Falcon. I did something of a balance act with the Strawberry Mealycock and the Silver Hen. But with these two birds, I'm not doing a balancing act. I'm doing almost a unifying act. I've got two birds that are almost identical to each other. She's a male version of him. She's same head, same eye, same type, same size, same color, but completely different lineage. Gray back, black toes, same red-orange eye, same wedge type face. It's real familiar with my family of Sions. So what I'm doing there is that I'm just pouncing that family, keeping that family strong right there. I'm going to fly their birds, because when you go back on the pedigrees on both sides, it's full of 500 and 600 mile young birds. So I want you to see, Jeremy, I want you to, if you can, you see these were two balance acts. This isn't a balance act. It's a strong maintenance of the family. If you can show those two birds, you'll see why they're so much alike. And again, that's a family there. That's just representative of the family. These birds are all Sions, and they're all my family. But this is more where I'm going main line, where I breed towards all the time. But I got a huge amount of variation within that family. That's why that one fool on the internet said, "Oh, I don't know." People say stuff on the internet. If you leave it on the comment section, they'll say anything. I got one guy. I showed one of my videos. I have 1,000 people say, "Oh, I loved your video, and I learned so much from your video, and you really know more about birds." But I'll have one guy say, "Well, them birds out in the aviary that you had out there, you had them sticks that they roost on. They look like they're for budgies. You don't know how to put your sticks out there." That's the kind of stuff feedback you get. Or I had one guy say, "I got some birds from No Sweat, and they was okay, but I couldn't. I just did this and that with them." And I'm sitting there thinking, "Buddy, I could have given you Secretariat to run in the Kentucky Derby, and he probably would have run last. Just because some guy gets some birds from you and isn't successful with them, doesn't mean that the birds were bad all the time. It may have a big reflection upon who the guy is. He might not know how to train them and how to feed them. And if you don't know how to train and feed and condition pigeons and love your birds, then I can give you the best birds in the world, and you're not going to be successful with them. All you'll be able to do is complain about them." And we have a world of people. The quality of fancier that we have today versus the quality of fancier that we had 40 years ago is huge. When I was a teenager and in my 20s, all the fanciers went out in their lofts after they got off work and sat out there for 2 or 3 hours. Had pigeon widowers. The women were the widowers. They gave their husbands up to their pigeons. Guys would sit on a chair in their loft and watch their birds till roosting time, and then go back inside. They weren't on a cell phone, and they weren't on television. They were watching their birds. They loved their birds. They were devoted to the birds. They did every little thing about their birds. You said something the slightest bit negative about one of the birds, you might as well slap them. It was an insult to them. And when they came to a club meeting, they knew their birds. Today, the fanciers, all they're doing is going on the internet and looking at a pedigree or a souped up picture, and all the pictures are souped up. They've all been photoshopped. They've all got the same tail and the same wings when you look at them, the same stance, same statues, just like that statue there. They get that bird, and all they're thinking is, "I'm gonna get in a one loft race. I'm gonna win me $1 million, and I'm gonna be famous." Look, I got the pedigree. I'm gonna show you something about pedigrees. Let's see. Hand me 2 pieces of paper. Have you got any white sheet over? I don't know if I did not. Anyway, see if I got. I'm going to show you a pedigree. Here's a pedigree. How this bird did everything. There. See that pedigree? That. Show you his pedigree now. Keep watching. This is a good pedigree. This bird, and listen, this bird had DNA testing. It's got blood. If I had a magic marker, I can show you some blood stains on there. You know, DNA, Danny and Ned and Alfred. Let's see. This is one pedigree. All right, got that pedigree ready. I'm gonna send that to somebody. And I got another pedigree coming up. Here it is. Here's this other pedigree. I used to make pedigrees when I was in grade school all the time. I got handlers for making pedigrees. I was a good pedigree. There's another pedigree coming up right here. All this pedigree. This bird, this pedigree's unreal. Now here we go. 2 pedigrees. You've got them. Now watch them. Now birds, y'all watch out. We got 2 pedigrees coming. Go! That pedigree 1 over there. That pedigree went the farthest. That's the best pedigree. This pedigree right here. This pedigree 1. Yep. Now one day we're going to have a pedigree race. That's what pedigrees are worth. In many instances, that's all pedigrees were. There's guys that'll pay $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000, $1 million, and they get a pedigree. Well, that pedigree looks like it should be in the Louvre or something. It'll be the Mona Lisa here, and your pigeon pedigree is right next beside of it. And it'll just, people will come in, and you know how they stare at the Mona Lisa? Oh, look at Mona Lisa. Well, now they've got that pigeon pedigree. Oh, look at that pigeon pedigree. Oh, of course the pigeon didn't do anything. I mean, the baby's out of it, didn't do anything. But they got that pedigree. Yes, sir. They got a pedigree, and they're going to show it to everybody. They'll get tired late at night, wake up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, laying in a chair. Oh, I'm going to get out that pedigree and look at that pedigree one more time. I'm going to rub that pedigree. Oh, I feel so good. Oh, goodness, that pedigree sunk right into me. Oh, look what his great-grandfather did. He flew upside down from Jupiter. Oh, goodness. All right, your pedigrees. All right. Let's bring out another one. The Houdinis. I'm pulling rabbits out of boxes. By the way, these are Charles Heitzman's carrying cages. This is a Charles Heitzman cage that I had redone completely. This was his very first carrying cage in 1912 or 1911. What's that? 115 years ago almost. This was his carrying cage. This one, of course, I've put it back now. But I've still got his name tag on there. And I've got pictures of him with this. So it means a lot to me. Let's see who we can pull out. And I put a classic Charles Heitzman mating in here. Because I knew Charles Heitzman well enough I know how he selected birds, and what he did, and what he looked for in putting a pair together. And that's why I've got this pair together. This is a Charles Heitzman mentality, thinking, philosophy pair. This is what he would do when he was looking to put 2 pigeons together. So here we go. And this is about the size of Heitzman's birds. Heitzman's birds ran a little bit big. A lot of them did. He had some small birds, but he had a lot of big ones. More big ones than he did little ones. But those bigger birds, a lot of times when they're raising a young bird to fly in a race, the young bird itself is not that big in the race. It'll be big when it's 5 and 6 and 7 years old, but when it's a young bird, less than a year old, you know, it could be bigger than the other young bird, but it's still not what you call a big bird. And Heitzman knew that, because he flew into it. But here's the cockbird I picked. Now the one thing that Heitzman didn't like, this bird has that light eye. That light violet eye. Beautiful pigeon, a little bit on the big side. Perfect conformation, gray back, black toenails, classic, no sweat, Sion. He's this last year's bird. And I would say, looking at the band, I looked at it earlier, he's AA, so he wasn't a KY banded bird. Just knowing that, he was probably, without even knowing all those stuff, just knowing the way I band birds, he's probably April hatch. I won't be off a month. Somewhere's right along about then is when he hatched out. Okay, he's a bigger bird, perfect conformation, and all that. So you know that. All right. Who do you put him with if you're Charles Heitzman? Well, Charlie's got that bird. It's a blue cock. Charlie Heitzman, you pick out a medium or a medium small hen with a different kind of eye. And now he, like I said, he liked darker eyes. He usually chestnut or the red orange eye or and a few yellow eyes. So I've picked out a bird that's got a completely different eye on him. See? And she's a little bit different type. And she's a silver bar. Heitzman loved to make blue bars back to silver bars, or red checks back to silver or blue bars. He wanted to mix the black gene and the red gene together. He did it over and over and over again. And a lot of the blue bars you get from him, you can see a little tint of silver in them. If you've got a silver, you can see a little bit of tint of blue. And that's why with so many of his red checks, and silvers too, that you had black in the tail, or black ticking, black up in here. I've not been crossing the black gene and the red gene together for 20 years, and he did it every year. More importantly than that, he believed, as do many people, that the quality of feather in a silver isn't as good as the quality of feather in a blue bar, in the black gene. There may be some slight truth in that. I don't know the strength of the two, but it does seem a lot of times that many silvers seem, if they've been silver red genes together for a long time, that the quality of feather, the strength of that feather seems to dissipate just slightly. You have to keep that in mind when you're breeding birds. So he would make that blue back to the silver, to the red, so that he would get that, reinforce that strength again. But more importantly, if you do what I'm talking about right here, if you make a blue bar cock like him, back to the silver hen, see, she brought him down in size. She mixed up his eye. They're not mated yet. You can tell that. I'll quit beating her up. He's letting her know. I brought him down in size. He's a little bit too big, and he's got better conformation than she does. But the big thing, the good thing, the thing that Charlie liked about it was that any of the babies this pair raises, you automatically know what the sex is of their babies. Anytime you made a blue bar cock, black gene, back to a red gene silver, like this is, it could be a red check or silver, any of the birds, I'm going to take him out there, any of the birds that's his color, any of the babies that's his color, will always, 100% of the time, be a female. It's a color sex link opposite trait. And any of the silvers, so any of the birds that's her color, will be automatically a male. So if you made a blue male to a silver, all the blues will be hens, all the silvers will be cocks out of them. Always, 100% of the time accurate. And since they're both bars, I can't raise a check out of them. It's impossible. So anything I raise out of them will be bars again as well. There'll be a blue bar or a silver bar every time. I can't raise a red check out of them. I might have a bird that'll have a recessive trait hidden back in it somewhere that'll come up, and I could have a blue bar white flight out of them. I could have a silver white flight out of them. I could have a blue bar splash or a silver splash, but it'll still be the bar pattern. You know, and basically you're full of bar patterns. That's all I've got up here. I'm going to show one more mating, and then we'll go to the loft. So I'm trying to talk about as much as I can. This is going back like the two blue bars. This is an old mating from last year. Oh, hush. But it's two brick reds. A lot of people love my brick reds. 1033 and 1104, the original pair of Charles Heitzman. They were reds. They weren't quite as nice a reds as these are. As dark red and as pretty as these are. And they have the really dark violet eyes. A lot of people think they're black eyes. But this is keeping my red family very much alive. I mean, in exactly what I want. The dark red. And he happens to have tan colored feathers in his tail. Usually that's a female trait. But this is definitely a cockbird, and he definitely has brown instead of black in his tail. I'll show you back up here, but I already know that this pair will raise, you know, if they raise 8 birds next year, at least 7 of them will be brick reds with dark eyes. I have a world of people that love my brick reds with dark eyes. And they're all, most of them are line bred to Old 51, which was Charles Heitzman's iconic red check cock. It wasn't a brick red.
It was, and as you see in some of the paintings of it and stuff, it was a red check, a dark red check. It wasn't more of a velvet like these are. You'll see these reds I've got. See, they're red all up underneath, and the red extends all down into the body. It's a much more deeper red than you see on most reds. And even in the red in the secondaries on that flight, see how they come back, the red tips. You don't see that in a lot of reds. One thing that people love in any endeavor is to be recognized, and one of the ways they can be recognized is get some kind of plaque, an award, a piece of paper or something. That's wonderful. You know, I had an uncle that's a politician. He was you go into his office, he was a county judge, and he was also representative in Kentucky. But you went in his office in the courthouse, he had office wall. His wall went, it was all plaques and certificates given to him for all the achievements he ever, you know, all these great things that he had done all his life. I told him, I went to his office one time. I was his campaign manager at one point, and he won that one. I said, "Oh, Ralph, you got so many awards and plaques and stuff, you need to get some steel girders in here to help hold that wall up. It's going to cave in and kill you." He laughed and he said, "Yeah, I know it." And then I got a pigeon friend that I think the world of, and he's a great pigeon man. And I was at his house a few years ago, and we went down in his basement. And when you went down there, you had to have dynamite to blast your way through the basement to get through the trophies. He had trophies. Well, I don't know. He had to build a tunnel to get through the room for the trophies. And I thought, it was I don't know, it was a shrine of trophies. You know, like I said, I've won 1,500 first places, and probably at one time had about 700 or 800 trophies. I don't even know what that crap is up there. Those 2 or 3 little trophies right there, just junk. I gave all my. I won one time. I had 2 cardboard boxes full of trophies. Got on the elevator with some other pigeon friends. They said, "Man, you racked up. Look at the trophies." I said, "Y'all want them?" They said, "Are you serious?" I said, "I'm dead serious." They took the trophies. I don't know. I guess trophies are. I guess you have to hold them, rub on them. I got that trophy. I won that race. I won that pigeon show. Look at my trophy. Oh, I don't know, but for me, I don't know. Everything's a little different. I've got a few trophies at the house, but I don't know this whole thing. And they show these guys. I think of some guys in Europe, and you go into their man cave, their pigeon cave. And when they sit down in their easy chair, you know, where they look out over their loft, all behind them, whole walls full of trophies. I guess they go in every day. I guess it's like Buddha or something. I guess the trophies. Oh, the trophies. I got trophies. I don't know. These are my trophies. These are, you know, I think of pigeons as a living art. Here, get your wings up, honey. But you know you're on camera. And they are. A pigeon is an artistic form, a living art. And, you know, they've got my name on them. They represent me. You know, this is what I've been doing for going on 70 years doing this. So, and it started out me being that little boy climbing around on, putting a 2x4 up against a telephone pole and climbing up on the telephone pole, and then lifting myself up to get on the man walk of a bridge and climbing out on the man walk, and then shimmying up the girders, the supports of the bridge, you know, 60 foot above and with a flashlight in my mouth and trying to blind the pigeon and catch it. And here's where I'm at now, you know, after all these years. I couldn't never quit with pigeons, and I've loved them so much, and they've been an integral part of who I am and my life and my family. I've been, everybody that knows me in town knows I'm a pigeon man, and when I take the pigeons to the post office to ship them, they'll go, "Here comes chicken man." And I said, "These ain't chickens." They say, "Cluck, cluck, cluck." I said, "These chickens aren't clucking, they're cooing, they're pigeons. Chickens cluck, pigeons coo." You know, when you go to shipping birds anymore, I ship them in these crates here. That's a 16 bird crate, and that crate cost me about $50 just for the box. Time you pay $30-something for the box and another $15 to $20 to have it shipped back to you, you're out $50. And They're very expensive, and this is a shipping box too. You all seen these shipping boxes, let's be talking about them, but I don't put much stock in them. I make some of my own boxes sometimes, do this, when I find enough spare time, but I swear by the time you fix a really good box and everything, you've got so much time tied up in it, you might as well buy one of these boxes. And the tape and everything else is involved in it. The one thing that I hate about them is the ventilation. Birds do not get enough air in these boxes, and I'll usually try to job more holes in them. I've had some bad luck with shipping at times. I hate to ship when it's hot in the summertime. This is a good time of year to ship birds. And I've shipped birds all over the world. I've shipped birds to Germany and Belgium, Peru, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico. I've shipped them to Taiwan, to China, Japan, all over. All over. You wouldn't believe, in vampire country and everything else. I've shipped birds back to Africa. People I've got Africa that wanted my birds. And all my birds have been doing exceptionally well this year alone. This family of pigeons that I've kept together. Again, when I talk about family, look, I'm looking for birds that fly well to breed back out of. That's what it's all about. It doesn't matter whether it's in a family or not. I want a bird that's performed, a bird that's flown 500 and 600 miles. It just happens to be in my family, and that's what I want. I have a lot of birds. I go through a lot of diversity in that group of birds. I've got birds, as you've seen, with light gray eyes, pearl eyes. I've got birds with dark violet eyes, chestnut eyes, red. I got different sized bodies, but still it's a uniform group of Sions. There's nothing. As far as inbreeding and line breeding, that's the smartest thing you'll ever do. You have to have bananas for brains to think that the best. I've got a bird that came back from 600 miles on the day and beat everybody by 2 hours. Let's see. Lance, what should we do? I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's go get us a monkey and make to it. Or let's go find a pigeon in Europe. Let's go find this other pigeon. This pigeon won this and this pigeon won that. Let's put them all together. I don't care about my bird, what all it does. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I think we all know that. And a lot of times they say the chips off the old block. We all know that too. And that's what you want. That's common sense. You got a bird that's a champion. The first thing you don't do is try to breed away from it. You try to breed to it. You try to keep that blood, that champion blood, and you try to actually improve it. And you don't try to find something that's completely opposite of it to mix back to it. You've got control over the genes in the family to some extent. You never have full control over them because of the things that I earlier mentioned about. You know, one of the reasons that people love pigeons is because they admire the quality that they have that us humans want to say we want, but so often don't do. You know, pigeons try to mate for life together. They take care of each other. Anybody that comes into their nest box, both the male and the female will fight them away. They protect each other and protect their children. They're a life form that is akin to humans. There's no, all life is kin to each other. You know, we all mysteriously came up on this earth, came out of the earth, came out of the ocean, and went into being all the different things that we are. And so everything's kin to each other. It's a strange notion, but the pigeons are our brothers as much as anything else, in a sense. And so when we see birds come home from long distances to be back at their home, to be back at with their babies and stuff, you know, one of the best ways to fly a pigeon is for them be coming back, a hen coming back to her eggs or coming back to her babies or something. You know, that's that much more stronger will for her to get back. We understand that. You know, it's a drive to survive, and we admire that with the pigeon.
So it's a strange indeed that when we walk into a loft, we're walking into another world, and it sort of erases all of everything else that's going on in your life. Whatever it is, whatever troubles you got, they're stress absorbers, and they're worth their weight in gold. Just as that, being that entity of that, being so I think they've been good for me in that. And they're good for everybody else that raises pigeons. So many other things that people can talk about and do, but the pigeon's such a simple little creature, and yet you can learn so much from it. The Indians knew that, that all life was interconnected with each other, and they didn't have to study biology or chemistry or evolution or anything else. They knew that we were all together, all life was together, and that's one of the things that somehow we're missing out on in the world today, and have always. People want to dominate, just kill everything, and so I don't know. As I've gotten older, I've paid more attention to all that. Let me stop there for a minute.
What do you think about mating brothers and sisters together?
I don't think there's anything at all wrong with mating two pigeons that are full brothers and full sisters. I've known several fanciers that had outstanding success doing exactly that. This whole notion of mating a brother and a sister together, you think, oh, well, that's all I'll get is just 100% of the same blood back. That's not true. Yeah, you put the same two genes together, and you would think that you may get all the same thing back, but you won't. If you made a brother and a sister together and you'd raise 12 babies out of that pair, more than likely you're going to have a lot of variation among those 12 brothers and sisters that they raise. Look at your own family. If you've got 12 brothers and sisters, I doubt that every one of them is exactly the same height, exactly the same weight, has the same teeth, the same color of eyes, the same kind of hair, and the same kind of skin, and all have the same personality. Be very rare. And it's the same thing with pigeons. And as you as a breeder, you put two quality pigeons together, you've got a fantastic hen, and you've got a fantastic male, and they happen to be brothers and sisters. They've flown fantastic. Put them together. You may wind up raising some babies out of them that are better than they are. That's very much a possibility. So there's nothing wrong with putting a brother and a sister together. I don't know, people mix up ideals in their head are stupid. Common sense tells you to do some things, and mating a brother. Ed Lorenz and his brother out in California, they were two of the greatest pigeon flyers I've ever known. And the best pigeon they said they ever raised was out of a brother and sister. The best pigeon, one of the very finest pigeons I've ever raised, is hardcore. A little silver cock. You hear me talk about him all the time. Those silvers I had in here a while ago, that one's down line bred to him. He's right out of a brother and a sister. And that blood has been strong 1, 2, 3, 4 generations down the line. They're all still flying very well. This past year, I won the biggest race in Denmark. I won the biggest race in one of the outer islands. I can't think of that. I can't think of that island it was on. But these birds are winning all the time, and brother and sister, father and daughter. You can do that. There's no problem. And one of the most best things that's happened to me in the last year has been my grandson helping me with the birds all the time. And I was at work one evening and I got a phone call. He said, "Pops," I said, "What?" He said, "I got good news and I got bad news." I said, "Well, what's the good? Well, the birds all look good and everything." He said, I said, "Well, what's the bad news?" He said, "One of them got out." I said, "Which one was it?" He said, I'm not sure. It might have been summertime. I said, "Lance, honey, you didn't let summertime out." He said, "I just opened the door and she hopped on my head and went right out the door." And I said, "What'd she do?" And he said, "She took off in got way up high in the sky, circled a few times and disappeared." I said, Lance, it couldn't have been summertime. He said, I think it was. I said, go back out there in the loft and look for, a certain bird. The hen's got a heavy wattle and, got a green band on her and everything else. And he called me back up and said, yeah, it was summertime, Pops. So I couldn't even think about anything. Here we was, he paid $10,000 to get her back, and you've gone through all that with that guy, trying to steal the money and everything else. And then that whole business of flying in South Africa to start out with, what a corrupt bunch that was. Then he loses her. So I come out to the loft that night with a flashlight, and I go in the loft, and she's gone. And she had 1-day-old babies. And the male Maltese falcon was sitting on the nest. And he's not a bird to sit on the nest at nighttime. But he set the nest at night, and it was a cold night. And I called Lance. I went home, and I said, Lance, she's gone. I couldn't sleep that night. I knew the babies would die. There was 2 babies. And I went back to the loft early the next day, and he'd gotten off the nest, and 1 baby was barely alive, and I put it underneath another pair. And John, which lived up on the hill above the lofts, he said, I seen a blue bar hen flying down off the hillside there this morning when I started my truck up. She flew down off the hill and went down there down where the guy's got his chickens. And a hawk came right out off the tree and met her right in the air. She dove down, he in high weeds down there, and he went right down on top of her. I said, you mean down over? He said, yeah. And so I went down there and I looked for feathers and I looked for her and I couldn't find nothing. And I thought, well, he said, that big game rooster down there, he said he crowed, went on something awful, So I figured, well, she must have roosted here that night, and then, did try to come back to the loft because she had those babies. But just as soon as she, flew down the tree to come toward the loft, that hawk got her, Cooper hawk. So I went for about 3 or 4 days. Lance was like, Pops, I'm sorry I let her out. I was like, Lance, I just can't believe it. And Pops, I don't know what to do. And I was like, just forget it. That's always your best bird, is the one that always, there's some tragedy that happens to it. And went for about 5 or 6 days. And one morning I came out to the pigeon loft early in the morning. There sat summertime underneath the pigeon loft all by herself, sitting there staring at me. And she looked like she was wore out. Didn't look like she did any food or water or nothing. And so I went around on one side of the loft. I had a net. She went around the other side of the loft. I went around the other side of the loft. She went around the other side of the loft. I couldn't start to catch her. Every time I'd walk or leave, I've been around birds all my life. I know what it takes to spook one and stuff. And she's wanting to fly, but she didn't fly. But finally, what I did, I went up the steps in the loft. She's in a small loft. I went in and caught every single bird I had in that loft and put them in a carrying crate and walked back down the steps. She didn't fly away. Then I opened the door of the loft completely open. And I walked her real easy around to the front of the loft. She walked around there, and I stood still. And she stood still. She looked up at that door. She could see that door was open. She hopped up on a step. She stood. She hopped up on another step. And she went up there and went straight on in the loft. Of course, I shut the door. And I had just a big emotion come over me, like, oh my God, I got summertime back. And so, of course, I called Lance up and told Lance. And he was thrilled to death, too. So
no sweat, how do you respond when you hear somebody else claiming they have the best birds in the world?
Well, there's one guy, the same guy that keeps telling me that he's handled 1 million pigeons a year. He handles them, that's every 5 seconds. He's got a pigeon in his hand. Well, he's using the bathroom. I got he can't get toilet paper. He's got a pigeon. I don't know how he does it. He's a miracle worker. Tap dances too, I guess. Anyway, he handles 1 million pigeons a year, and he tells you to cross pigeons. Got to cross them because he's got crosses. He sells crosses. He's gonna make money with crosses. That's what you get to sell what you got. And so, and he ain't got time for families anyway. And don't know if he know how to make a family. And he advertised that he has the best pigeons in the world, the whole world. Well, I watched him fly last year over in Africa. He entered this big mob of pigeons. And he didn't have a single bird finish the last race. They's all gone. Nothing come home. 0. Big O. I thought to myself, he got the best pigeons in the world. He never got one back off 300-mile range. I don't know what I call that false advertisement. Somebody that tells you they got the best birds in the world and not unfinish a race. I don't know, back in Kentucky, we talk a little different than that. That sounds like somebody stretching the truth just a little tiny bit. So, word to the wise on them type characters that are out there, that's all they do is make money and they're helping you. I'm going to help you. You know, I'm going to help you with your pigeons. You know, oh, you want to get some birds from me? Well, I'll help you. I'll help you. So that's what that's all about. And we got a lot of it going on the internet. Everybody's helping you. Everybody's got the best bird. It's crossed with this bird, and I crossed with that, and I put Heinz 57 in it, and I got some hot sauce from Mexico, and I got this and that, and I've done everything. I've got a soup that you can't believe. Set you on fire when you taste it. Whew. Families, you have to spend your whole life. I work with a lot of different pigeons. I raised 1,000 birds last year. Family doesn't mean that they're all exactly the same. You saw all them birds. That's just a few birds out of the group of birds I've got. I have a lot of different birds that do a lot of different things. But I keep it together as a family. They're all basically all Sions. They all came from Paul Sion. Paul Sion had thousands of birds through his life. And when I've got that many birds, I have the advantage of being able to select just a few out of that group each year to keep the very finest ones. And that's what I've been doing. You have to have the ability and the knowledge to know how to pick out the best ones. You have to have a program in the back of your mind. You have to know where you're headed on something. You have to have a goal. You're just grabbing birds and putting them together. And that's not what I do. I put birds together for a purpose. And I'm following certain lines. So we talking about Old 51. We talking about La Rosalette. We're talking about all the hardcore and all these. There's certain lines of Sions within my group of birds. Not all birds are all out of hardcore, or every bird I got's out of this or that. There's a lot different. The old Grizz family of the Sions, all that. Even Heitzman, he had a large group of differences within his Sion family. And I do too. I've had Sions longer than anybody that's ever lived. And I'd like to think I probably know as much about them as anybody that's alive today. I've got all the old original Sion correspondence from Sion himself that Heitzman had. They're all written in French, had to be translated. I've got all the old original Sion photographs that were sent over to Heitzman to look at from Paul and Robert Sion. I know what the original Sions look like. There's guys will tell you they know all about Sions, and they wouldn't know a Sion if it roosted on their forehead. But you got to get used to that kind of stuff when you're. And there's people say, "Oh, them old Sions are slow. Them old Sions are this and that." You know, my birds in the last 10 years have had several instances where they were flying over 2,000 yards a minute. I don't know if that's slow or not. And that was in training tosses and in races with thousands of birds that they did that. It wasn't something I did. And, you know, so, yeah. When you're flying 2,000 yards a minute, I don't think that's particularly slow. Like I said, on those days, they probably had tailwind. Everything was perfect. Temperature was good. Tailwind was good. Birds were in good condition. And when everything's like that, yeah, you can get some birds to fly 2,000 yards a minute. And they could be anything. They could be a family of pigeons very easily. But I get really worn out. Like I said, what would any of these races be if half of them were my family? You don't have anybody that takes the time out to do what I do. They spend a whole life of time doing what I do with the birds. It just don't exist anymore. Just everything's cut and dry, it's fat, put it in the microwave. You know, it's all go all the time. People don't have time to spend with their birds and to think with their. And a lot of guys, they don't know how to train a bird. They don't know how to feed a bird. People say, how do you train a bird for 500 miles, a young bird, or 600 miles, a young bird, 700 miles? I've had a lot of people ask me that. Well, first of all, I'm breeding from birds that flew 500 and 600 and 700 miles as young birds. It's in their genes to start out with. And then I try to get birds that are the right kind of bird Usually my better birds that fly from longer distances are usually small. Small hens fly very well for me. 4 times I've let birds loose from 700 miles, like the old Callahan that I keep talking about. She was the only bird. I let 45 birds loose. She came back 10 days later. There's a lot of guys that say, well, I don't want any pigeon that flew back. It took 10 days to come back from 700 miles. That wasn't anything. There's a young bird, about 10 months old. All I got to say to that is, buddy, go out in your loft and go get all the birds in the club, every bird you can round up, all the young birds, and you take them 700 air miles, and you let them go, and let me know how many of them come back. I don't care if it's 2 weeks or a month. Let me know, because I'd be interested. I can tell you right now, you never even get any of them back. All these crosses, these crosses are primarily birds coming out of Europe, down from different, I can't pronounce their names. They're birds that are short distance birds, 150-mile bird, 200-mile bird. Birds don't necessarily have strong homing instincts that fly back from 100 miles, 200 miles, 250 miles. Those birds fly together, they're gregarious, they follow each other. They'd follow a sparrow if they got a chance, some of those birds. And yet they come in and they say, oh, they did all this and that over in Europe. Yeah, they at 200 miles, 100 miles. They say they're a speed bird. Nothing speed about them. You get to double check and you say, well, yeah, they were flying 1,500 yards a minute. So what's that? So, and that's why we're losing birds, because you're breeding out of those crosses coming out of Europe. You're mixing them up. They're short distance birds with poor homing instincts. They're not good birds. And if you look on their records, it'll say flew this and flew that and flew this and flew that and flew this and flew that, and you have to flip the page and be more flying, flip another. But they're all 100 miles, 200 miles, 100 miles. I flew against 19,000 birds and I finished, 1800s, and I flew against 25,000 birds and I finished at 11th, and on and on and on, over and over and over again. None of it telling you anything about the pigeon, other than it can come home from 150 miles following a bunch of pigeons. And that's what you got in the United States today. You got all these crosses that have been following each other. So, well, prior to you, if that's where you, and that doesn't interest me. I'm not interested in any other pigeons. I'm interested in these Sions I've got, making them better than even what they are right now. That's what I'm interested in, maintaining a family of pigeons, keeping the Sion family alive. Paul Sion was a fantastic flyer. Charles Heitzman was a fantastic flyer. And I like to think that I would make those guys proud with the birds that I've got.
And with the overall health of your birds, would you prefer a natural immunity?
Always natural immunity over artificial immunity. Anytime you have to give animals constantly some kind of medicine, I've got to give it this and I've got to give it that. It gets an eye sore, it gets a cold, it gets this, it gets that. All these different things that people can get. Oh, I got to give it that, I got to give it that. And you're spending money all the time. Or you get a bird that's got a canker, you get a bird that's got whatever. And you've got to go buy some medicine. I've always told my Lance, I said, I don't run a hospital and I don't run an old folks home when I run these pigeons up here. So I'm not much on medicines. I believe that it's okay to give the birds a little cod liver oil on rare occasions if they're stressed out. If in the capsule form, I put a little apple cider vinegar in the water every now and then. Apple cider vinegar has many obvious good things about it for humans and about everything. Of course, they got to have good grit and fresh water. But as far as all the time giving them all these different medicines, and that's another reason we have so many birds that don't do well, because so many of them are on artificial, keeping them alive. They're surviving on artificial, immunities. Lance will tell you that my lofts about half the time stay pretty dirty. We get water out of the creek about 3 or 4 months out of the year when the water all freezes up. The only way we can get water out here, we go down here to a creek and bust ice and dip water right out of the creek with 5-gallon buckets and pour it in the water. And that's what the birds get. And it's probably not good for them. But the ones that survive, they turn out to be pretty tough pigeons. And when I ship those birds, this family of pigeons,
it's interbred pigeons and line bred and everything else. When I ship them to a race in Africa, the Victoria Falls or the South Africa race or any of these other big races, when they go through the quarantines, I rarely lose a single pigeon. Where everybody else that are famous pigeon guys that have got all these, been giving drugs and shooting them up with everything else, their parents or grandparents, they'll lose half of the birds. They'll lose 25 or 30% is common. It's real common for them to lose birds in their quarantine. And they're not as strong. They're not as strong bird.
They don't have the natural immunity.
They don't have a natural immunity. And that's just a fact. So I breed from birds that have natural immunity. If there's ever a bird that gets the slightest bit sick or weak on me, it takes a trip on up to pigeon heaven. I just don't keep them. I usually give the bird away or just don't keep it. I don't keep anything that's not perfect. And that means in everything. If any bird has got I haven't bred an 11th flight bird. I can't remember the last time I counted a bird had 11 flights. But I don't get 11 flights anywhere in my colony of pigeons.
No sweat. How many pigeons did we lose this winter?
0. We lost 0 birds for the last 3 months. One of the hardest winters we've had in about 6 years. It's been deep. Go on my website, Heitzman, No Sweat Sions, Breeders 2025, and you can see the snow and ice that we had to go through. We did not lose a single bird. Sometimes we didn't feed and water them for a day or two because we couldn't get out here to feed and water them. And so the birds just had to be tough. And they were tough, tougher than we were. So there's very, very strong, internally healthy pigeons that I maintain, these Sions. Is there any other questions at all? Well, let's go out and look. All right, we're entering into one of the lofts. Jeremy and Lance and I. This particular loft right here is where I keep all the reds. These are all Sions. I just shipped 40 reds to Taiwan. Gentleman over there, extremely nice person. He's got a lot of my reds now. He'd gotten a few reds prior to that. And I'm honored that he loves the reds as much as I do. We're walking out here to the aviary. I've got a few birds, I think 3 or 4 babies right now. Like I said, it's the end of January. You'll see I keep primarily brick reds. Lance, you might want to get a little scoop of feed. They haven't been fed today. We've taken a container, like you see 18-wheel truck pulling, and we've modified it. You'll see that red right there in the nest? Right here. I see that, yeah. I can tell, there's a lot of things I can tell you about reds. If they're checkered like this little red hen is, instead of a velvet, those usually go back. I had a red pair called the red pair, and the cock was out of Hardcore in Chattanooga. It was a red check cock, and I had a red check hen that was out of Resolve. No, he was out of Resolve in Chattanooga, and Hardcore was made for a blue check hen called Long Wing. Anyways, all 4 of them had flown 600 miles, and I started raising. I had a pair of them called the red pair, and that bird, that blood has been so good at 600 miles. She's getting up. Let's put a little feed down. This is a very open loft. Not hardly like any loft you'll ever walk into. The birds have a great deal of freedom. There's 3 of us in here. You know, the birds know who you are. They know the routine. I'm going to try to make sure you all get a good look at these reds and all my birds, because there's no other red family of pigeons like this anywhere in the world. generally, if I have a mutation, and it's generally true with life in general, with breeding cattle or horses or dogs, but mutations are more likely to appear among older birds or older animals when they're mated together. I don't know, it seems like there's a cell breakdown, the DNA replication. As far as birds being tame or wild, I discuss that a lot with people. They think, oh, you've got a big giant open loft like this, the birds have to be just crazy wild. Well, there's my crazy wild pigeon. You know, I don't come in here and grab these birds every 15 seconds. It's not necessary. What affects a bird's or a pigeon's personality? It inherits from its parents. You know, if the birds were wild to start out with, there's a chance that the birds themselves will be a little bit wild. But things that do affect the bird a lot will be its upbringing and choices that surrounding, you know, its care as it's growing up. You know, how you conduct yourself in a loft as the bird is coming up, as well as its surroundings. And the environment does play a role with the bird. So it's a combination of genetics and environment, and then the way you operate around pigeons. A good pigeon man doesn't go in and grab birds every time he walks in a loft. Good pigeon men move around slowly. They don't make a lot of noise, loud noises. They don't excite birds. You get the birds learn to trust you. I'm gonna walk out here. Come on out, bird. Come on down, bird. Lance, you might want to come here and Avery. We'll walk them back. Come around behind me. We'll walk them in. I know y'all are hungry. Is that one door shut over there with the entrance? This is the finest group. You've got to remember, these are 500 and 600 mile reds, pure Sions. A lot of them, like I said, will go back on 051, but they go back on several different lines of Sions. That's a classic little Sion right there. Where's Jeremy? Yeah, stand out there. Lance, come over here. No, I want you to walk these back in. I want to try to keep them from coming out now. Yeah. I'm trying to get you all a good look of them. You know, Lance? Yeah. Come over on the side of me. There is not a better group of racing brick-red Sions to be found, period. And I've got about, I'd say right now about 60 reds. We give the birds a great deal of freedom. They love it. They're super, super healthy. Loft basically almost 10 foot high. I don't try to catch the birds. It's about 10 foot wide or 8 foot wide. I'm not sure how wide. long, 45 foot long, but this is 20, this section's 20 something feet. You'll see a few of the brick reds will have a light colored head. They have a name for that in France. It means they dip their head in powder. You see one right there, that's a classic. You know, when I used to go into Heitzman's loft, I was hoping when this whole loft was sort of a dream, I thought, you know, it just might work doing this. Of course, a loft like this is built so much stronger than these prefab things you buy at Lowe's and other places. And this loft's metal with heavy, heavy wooden floor. I just want you to get a good look at the birds is what I'm trying to do. This group of reds, I'll be moving around at different times through the loft. It's got a lot. It's not like a loft you'd ever walk into. It's like a little kid's loft. It's a loft that's built for the birds. Something that they want, that they love, not something that you love. My goal here was to keep the birds happy. Happy birds are healthy birds. I think you can see just the stamina and well, not the stamina, but just the being in health that these birds have right now. If you've got an eye, if you understand health of pigeons, you'll see every pigeon here tight feathered, alert. You'll see also a family, what I keep talking about, a uniform group. There's never been a family, quite a racing family. These aren't birds to show. These are birds that we put in the biggest races in the world. There's no other Sion person right now today that's flying birds in the Florida Derby and in the Hoosier and all these races that these birds go into. If you've got an eye for pigeons, you can see. One thing I'm going to get Lance to do, just as an experiment, I wanted to show you what we do when we check. In fact, I think there's a baby up there. I think she's feeding that baby right now. She's about to the fourth nest down. You may want to bang that baby. But here's what we do when we check birds. Lance goes up a ladder. I think there's one baby up there by itself. One I banded. It's a brick red holder. Remember the nest it's out of. Let's go here on the light. You can't see it. 6 years brick red. Put it back with. There's one up there that needs to be banded with. Yeah. Yep. That's it. I saw it yesterday. I think it needs to be banded.
Yeah.
Remember the nest?
Yeah.
Some of these birds I call my red doves. Because they're just got the... Well, if you've looked at mourning doves very close, you'll see how they got that little eye sear around their eye and got that sort of a dove look to them. And I love those. Yeah. There's a classic on Sion here. She's one of them with the dark eyes. Again, this is a loft built for pigeons, not for people. If you were a pigeon, you got to choose what loft you wanted to go in. Would you want to go in a loft that was 6 foot tall and covered with boxes and no ventilation? Or would you want a loft that half the loft was wide open and you had big aviaries to go out into and could roost up high, nest up high. When you go out into the real world of birds and pigeons, they'll tell you themselves. Pigeons love to have as much open air and sunshine and freshness. All birds do. And you're supposed to pay attention to that and do what they want. I had to wrap this aviary 3 or 4 layers of wire in places because the Cooper Hawks, when I first had them out here, the Cooper Hawks with just 1 layer of wire were reaching through and grabbing them. I lost several birds. One of the best hens I've got right now, she's got 1 leg. I had a Cooper Hawk that, I don't know how he did it, but one of his talons went through the wire and got her in 1 leg, and the leg finally died on her and rotted off, and that happened a year ago. And she's one of the best breeders I've got. She's a little red checker. She herself's not that beautiful, but the baby she raises, of course, she's down out of that all that real strong 600-mile line. See, that's what I've talked about on the checks. You know, there'll either be checks or velvet. I don't see the 1-legged hen. So I know she's in here though. Oh. You know, color mutations will not hurt in heredity. It won't affect the temperament of a bird or change its behavior simply due to a mutation. And when you do have a mutation, see that red check hen right there? See, she's a little bit lighter. She's more of a, and then the one above her is one of my red doves. They're all Sions, but there's slight variations in them. The one on the bottom there, the lighter color one, she's much more what Charles Heitzman bred. The one on top is much more what is closer to my family. There's another one much closer. They're more of a refined, tighter feather, more racy pigeon, just in looks. But when you do get bird mutations, it usually comes out in their colors, it'll come out in color patterns, and it'll come out in physical traits. You know, and then when you know what genes a bird carries, then you can selectively breed for that. I wish the white was a little different. It's not really bringing out just how gorgeous red these reds are. Yeah, it's overcast. You know, a mutation is, that's exactly what the word means. It's a mutation. I've been in a lot of lofts in my lifetime. Seen a lot of pigeons in my lifetime. I've never been in a loft or seen reds, anything like this. Period. Nobody. You know, if it's not a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful pigeon, it's not here. That's all I keep. Let's go on the silver side. I don't know if I've given you all justice on these reds or not. hard to get these reds to be the quality that they are. This looks to be like my best group of breeders I've ever had together in my life. A lot of these birds are yearlings. You'll see for the nesting materials, I've been using pine needles. You'll see the feed that Lance and I are feeding them right now is we've taken pigeon feed from what's that, over in Bardstown, and we've mixed it with whole grain corn and a bag of sunflower seeds
And a little bit of chicken scratch.
and some chicken scratch and some wild bird seed.
Yeah.
We mixed all that together and made that feed, and that's for the end of January. Start raising babies with stuff. But we might have maybe $17 for a 50-pound bag tied up in that. Maybe $18. And you don't know what pigeon feed costs today. So, you know, we got my eye on the money and watching what we have to do with the pigeon feed. But we do it ourselves, and we can get it for about half price. We're going to go on the silver side here for right now. I wish I had better lights so you all can see just how fantastic these reds are. But maybe you can see. As bad as it is today, it's way better than it's been. Like I said, I'd say 60% of these birds are yearlings. Lance, I might want you to come over here too. Okay, we're on another side. It's again about 22 or 3 feet long by about 8 foot wide by about 10 foot tall. And it's very open. Birds absolutely love it. Oops, sorry. You know, Paul Sion, his favorite color were the silvers. And the silvers were really known to be, they're synonymous with a lot of Sions. There's one boy called Fat Boy. That's on the bottom, down the silver cock. He looked on the bottom row, the second nest. Oh, he's out of a girl called Patty. She was always the first one to eat. And she was the last baby out of her. And she was bred down out of 300. It's a great group of silvers. try to find that one strawberry. Here. Again, we keep a lantern in every one of these rooms. The birds like to play on them. Lance, I may want you to walk up on that side so they don't fly back in here.
All right, I gotta grab a band.
We're in a good location. It's really quiet here. I've got 5 acres of land here that I'm trying to turn into just a nature reserve. Gonna let it all grow back up in trees and let the birds and the butterflies and the bees and the raccoons and the minks and everything else, whatever wants to come up here and roam around and have a good time. Got a creek down there, got the woods, got open fields. They're right in the middle of town, so I feel like I'm blessed to have such a peaceful place to keep these pigeons. I'm planning on building another small loft this spring and summer. It'll probably be like 12 by 8. It'll be a small breeding loft, and I'll be on the other side of this loft. It'll be basically a wooden structure with wire. A big lot of it will be wire. It'll be a big open loft where I'll keep maybe 4 pair of breeders. I didn't want to have another small loft. Then I'm wanting to get back to flying the birds again. And I'll show you a little later on what I'm getting ready to do about that. Because I really enjoy flying them myself. About half the silvers I got are powder silvers. I've got 2 strawberry mealies. The one's the father of the other one I kept this year. You saw that older one. I had him over there. He's one of the birds I want to breed from for the Florida Derby. There's the son that I raised this year. That real pretty strawberry right there in the corner. He's a gorgeous bird. I've had several people ask to buy him, but I don't want to sell him. I want to make him back to one of these powder silver hens. You know, when you want quality, you know, versus there's people say, oh, I can get a bird from so and so for, you know, for $25 or something. I'm like, well, go get it. You know, so that's all I got to say about that. You know, it's always usually it's smarter to buy quality and have quality, whatever it is. Homes, cars, guns, knives. Whatever it is you ever get into, some people are smart enough to understand that, and some people are always just looking for a bargain, and they'll always be looking for a bargain. So there's a double blue hen. She's out of 300. She's at least 10 years old. I banded 7 birds, double blue bands. I think she's the only one left, and she is not for sale. Most of my Sions, like this silver cock on top here, they'll look like that when they're yearlings, 2-year-olds, but they really start to change a little bit when they get to 2 and 3 and 4 years old. They get a little more heavier wattles. A lot of people say, oh, I don't see any heavy wattles in your birds. I've got so many people that want my birds that I usually can't keep a bird that wind up getting a heavy wattle, but if I keep a bird 6, 7 years old, a cock bird, or 8 years old, they'll wattle up. I'll have But most of my birds, I breed for a cleaner wattle to start out with. There's the father and the son, right there together on top. He's the son just flew. You know, when you get a really good bird that flies well, a lot of people say, I'm going to breed out of that pigeon. I told a friend not too long ago, I said, the smart guy, yeah, you'll breed out of that pigeon and breed around it. But the smart guy goes back to the parents that bred that pigeon. That's the bird you need to be thinking about. The birds, the parents that bred that pigeon. One thing for him to fly good, but you already know, hey, that bird's breeding. Get it back in. One thing, if you've never seen a Sion, you're getting to finally see true, honest Sions, and you're getting to see a Sion family. But you probably have to go all over the whole world to get to do that. So. You done fed them, man. Did you bandit one, baby?
Yeah.
You can go on my Heitzman Sion website. It's Heitzman. It's Heitzman No Sweat Sions. Breeders 2025, and get an update on my birds. You'll see pictures of a lot of the birds you're looking at right now. I think that the birds speak for themselves. You'll notice every single bird closed back, excellent balance, excellent type, super healthy pigeons. They should be well noticed. I have less silvers than I have. I only keep 3 colors. I keep silvers, reds, and blue bars. And I have less silvers than I have any color. I will be entering some silvers in the Florida Derby. My silvers fly exceptionally well, but I hate entering them in big races because they stick out like sore thumbs. For hawks, the red flag for hawks. A lot of the powder silvers, especially when they fly, they look solid white. Beautiful pigeons, but they also look like they're white, and a hawk can see them a mile away. These lofts are extremely cold in the wintertime because they're so open. So you have to have a very healthy pigeon to endure this kind of weather. I'll walk back out here and then we'll head to the blue bars. I'm actually glad not to be raising babies. A lot of times this time of the year I might have raised as many as 100 birds by February. This year I don't have any. I've got 2 birds out of summertime and a couple little banded babies right now. That's it. It's a lot of work when you raise a great big bunch of pigeons. Keeping up with the records, keeping up with the feed, keeping up with everything. It's too much. Again, and I'll say offhand, out of these silvers, I know that's a yearling. That little powder silver hen. She's actually a late hatch from last year. Most of these silvers are yearlings. There's a classic silver Sion that wants a heavy waddler next to the strawberry mealy. I've seen a million Sions look like him. He's a classic. You see him right there in the bottom right of the picture there. let's head over to the blue bars. I think we've seen reds and silvers enough. All right, we have just walked into another loft. The birds are getting ready to go to roost. This is the Leroy loft, I call it. So many of these birds, a lot of them go back to the greatest blue bar cock that ever came in the United States. Not all of them by any means, but several do. And it was Leroy, a blue white flight cock. He had one white flight that Lou Curtis had imported into, I think he lived in Boston or up there in Yankee country. And Charles Heitzman recognized that he was a great pigeon and got babies from him. And he got one baby that was an original of his original pair of Sions that he had, 1033 and 1104, a red check that was down out of that blue bar. And then he had, Lou had mated it back onto a red check, and that's how they got the red check. And then a few years later, Heitzman again got another bird out of Leroy. And that blood just was fantastic for Curtis and for Charlie. And it's been great for me too. And I've kept the family pretty close. My blues, I'm very, very proud of them. I guess maybe I probably like my blue bars better than I like anything, if you truth be told. You can see they've all got fresh pine needles that I just gave them yesterday. Of course, when you put down those pine needles, they go crazy because it scares them. You know, they think it's a raccoon or something coming along. And it takes them about a day to settle down and get used to them. But once they do, they love pine needles. And pine needles are one of the best things to use in a loft for nest, because mites can't get inside of the pine needles like it does grass or hay or something, you know, or feathers even. Pine needles are excellent. That and anything to do with tobacco. All those birds are some of my best breeders. There's a gentleman out in California that's a good friend of mine. But he's got a large group of my blue bars now. If something was to go wrong with me, a tornado or fire or something like that, I would probably be able to get my blue bar blood back through Mike. He's been an extremely nice person, and I'm happy that he exists because of he's a reserve bank for me if something was to go wrong. Again, you can see a lot of these birds on the website, Heitzman Sion website. You see that little black hen with the dark eyes back there. I don't have as many dark-eyed Sions as I do like reds. I've got more dark-eyed reds than I have any particular color. I raise a bird every now and then that'll have white flights. Very rarely raise one that's splashed. I don't raise many white flights. But if I do get a white flight bird, it's almost always a good racer. Like he's feeding the birds right now. They're hungry. Yeah, I've had this bird forever. A lot of these, some of my older birds in here are 10, 12 years old, 14 years old. But again, I have people to try to get my older birds all the time. I hope that you can see it's a family. I hope you can see the quality. Lance, you come here and stand at the door. One of y'all, so they won't come back in on me. Yeah, just stand right there. Stand right there and make yourself an egg. I don't know if there's any place in the world you can go and see a group on blue bars. This quality. If you do, I don't know where it's at. And this is all a family. Family that's come to me in many different ways. But I've tried to keep a harness on them, or keep them molded. Basically medium-sized birds. super quality. Variations in their eyes. Some variations in their faces. But if you're going to have, I've got probably close to 100 blue bars, and I'd say that probably 30 of them I could pick out to be almost identical. But I do have a lot of variation in them. Not many of them are chestnut-eyed. If you see a dark-eyed blue bar, it's almost always a dark violet eye. Now I've got some pearl eyes. Again, closed back, tight dents, perfect balance, superior health. They've just come through an absolute miserable, cold, bleak winter time. This is the first time we haven't had snow on the ground in about 5 years. I feel very comfortable in picking any baby out of any bird in here to fly against the best birds in the world in any race. There's the sticks that I've got that the birds love. That somebody, when I shot a YouTube video, made fun of, saying they looked like something rigged up for parakeets. There's always somebody in the peanut gallery. Always somebody jealous. Always somebody. Usually somebody's had pigeons 3 or 4 years. Believes anything and everything somebody else is dumber than he is tells them. John built this old loft, and we moved it from the property when I bought the 5 acres. It's been a good loft. I've had to shore it up and do some work to it, but it's held up. We've had some serious storms. Jeremy and his brother did a tremendous amount of work on getting this thing in here. I painted all the lofts of Kelly green and Irish green for good luck. My big loft I used to have up in Ravenna, Kentucky was a green color, and I always loved it, never did get tired of it. I've had a lot of people on the internet that told me they love the green color. I'm a strong believer in keeping as much light and as much air in a loft as possible. My advice to people starting out, I would try to get a loft at 6 feet, 10 feet off the ground. 10 feet if you can do it. And have 3/4 of the loft open. Birds love having a lot of air and light all around them. And I would have at least 1/3 to 1/2 of the roof made out of, light plexiglass where the light can come into the loft. You don't want all light, but you definitely do want light. Keep the birds keeps them healthier, good light and a lot of air. It's common sense. Like I said, the birds outside, that's what they like. You know, I see pigeon lofts that you barely can walk around inside of. I'll see pigeon lofts that are dark. There's one fancier on the internet that prides himself in being an expert. And he tells people that ventilation doesn't mean that much in a pigeon loft. He's got a loft that's all cramped up, dark. And yeah, the pigeons didn't really look too bad in there. But I thought to myself, how much better would they look if they actually had a loft where they could breathe and enjoy themselves? They look like prisoners, which is exactly what they were. I've got several of these birds that are possibly going to China here in the next few months. Some of these blue bars, I've got a gentleman up there right now in China that's asking about them. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll know a little bit more later. You know, the Sions made a big mark in China during World War II. Charlie Heitzman's son was one of the men that was in charge of the pigeons in the Army Signal Corps, along with guys like Otto Meyer. And Charlie Jr. took birds to Europe, to England, actually took some of Heitzman's Sions there, and he also took birds to China. China was our ally during World War II. And those birds that flew in China, the Heitzman Sions, did remarkably well. And at the end of the war, a lot of the Chinese continued to fly those birds and won many big races with them. And so the Chinese have been very receptive to Sions. They love them. And I sent birds to China several times. And I had a bird that won a 1,000-kilometer race over there, which was the longest race they had. It was only like 13 birds made it back, and I had 3 birds in that 13. And also, again, they flew a 700-kilometer race that I won in China. These are long-distance races over there, and the Sions did extremely well in China. This very bird right here, that hen out there in the back, you see her with the red band on the right leg and a blue band on the back. That's Chattanooga's daughter. Chattanooga was a little blue pencil hen. Her nestmates finished 13th in the AU convention race. Well, I think it flew in Boston. But that same year, I kept Chattanooga back, and I took them to a group of young birds down to Chattanooga to a friend of mine's house, and we released them. And a Cooper hawk flew down and got Chattanooga about 20 or 30 feet in front of him just as soon as we let him out of the box, and flew off with the hawk. So I knew she was gone and dead. A day later, she showed back up at the loft with her whole keel ripped open. And so I didn't fly her anymore that year. And she healed up fine. And I took a group of young birds down 600. That was when hardcore went. 2010, I think that was. And I took 145 birds down and took her in that group. And she came back like on the 3rd day from 615 miles as a yearling. And was covered in oil and tar. He couldn't even recognize her. We washed her off with soap, everything like you're supposed to. Did it 4 different times. You still couldn't tell anything about her, who she was much. But she finally molted back out the next year. And of course, I retired her after that. Any bird that gets killed by a hawk and come back home from 200 miles and then turn right around and come back from 615 miles a year when covered in oil. I didn't need to have anybody tell me that was a good pigeon. I knew she had exactly what I talked about, and that's the homing instinct. And sure enough, her babies have flown outstandingly well. She was integral in the breeding the red chick, the pair of red chicks called the red pair that bred consistent 500 and 600 mile flyers. And Chattanooga also raised babies that flew very well in Texas and down in Tennessee. And also in Indiana that won for me. There was one group of guys there in Indiana told one of my friends that recently died, said, them Sions won't fly well. And he turned right around and, you know, won one of their main races with it. And I had a friend in St. Louis last year. He was told by the guys, he lives outside St. Louis. He was told, oh, them Sions won't do this and that. He won 4 of the first races he flew in. I had a doctor in Pennsylvania. Same story, same thing. He wins all races. And I get it all the time. So, you know, these are the same birds that finished first. My blue bars, I flew them in the Victoria Falls race series about 4 or 5 years ago. The last time I flew there. And it was this group of Sions, this family of Sions, these blue bar Sions, they finished first team United States in the Victoria Falls race series. I don't think anybody even knows that. And they talk about crosses and everything. Hey, it was these birds that finished first for the United States. They beat all the names you can throw at me. It was this group of birds that finished first. I had the most points as a team, as a group of birds. And I had a very small team compared to most people. It was these blue bars right here. So, you know, I don't want to hear any stuff about crosses and families and all that lip service that I hear from people. It's, like I said, it's used car salesman tactics. Speed birds and crosses and all that stuff. People don't know how to breed a family of birds. They don't have the ability. They don't have the time. They don't have the devotion. And they don't have the good birds to start out with. They wouldn't know where to go. You really need somebody to help you if that's your goal. You need to buy birds from a family and work within that family. Then you know what you have. That bird out there with up against the wall there, the big bird, the cock. His brother got killed by a minch, but he's an outstanding breeder. It's funny, when he was a young bird, he was a lot neckier looking. As he's gotten older, his balance has changed, and he's got a much more pleasing look to him. He's one of my favorites. You'll see a few of my old birds. If you see them double banded, that means I probably banded them right in the nest when they were babies, knowing that, you know, they had 4 grandparents that flew 600 miles. And I'm like, hey, that blood's already good before I even test it myself. But you will see on occasion some birds that are double banded. That's telling me that they're very, very special bred pigeons. And I did have at one time I had a couple of hundred of those old aluminum bands. And I really put those on super special birds, you know, the bands we had in the 60s and 50s and 60s, you know, those kind of bands. They're wanting to go to bed, I can tell that. You know, this isn't a super expensive operation that you see all these millionaires that have got these big fancy lofts, and you got guys coming and clean their lofts for them, and we got aisles where they slide a door and there's a special pair there, and they walk on down the next aisle and they open the door and there's a special pair there and all that. I don't run an operation like that. I'm still just a kid, just a poor old hillbilly. But I do love my pigeons, and I know my pigeons extremely well. You know, they're a big part of my life and have been for a very long time.
There's a bird with an aluminum band.
Yep, there's only a few left anymore, and I can't get those aluminum bands. I look for them. Over there, and you'll see them on eBay or something, and they want $25, $30 each for them. I've got about 20 World War II bands that I'm thinking about starting to use. I got them from Heitzman. They said World War II bands are, some of them bring $50 a band anymore. Anyway, there's Lance, my helper, and that's Jeremy. Jeremy and I have been working together for a long time. He's my video man. Jeremy's been an awful good friend to me. And his brother too, and his daddy. Everybody. One of my favorite times of the day being in a pigeon loft is in the evening and then early in the morning. I love coming out in the loft and sit down and watching the birds come off the roost and waking up going out to the aviary. You know, I grew up in a little bitty apartment down in Irving next to my grandfather's theater, and it hung out, it had an open area underneath of it. It was like And my pigeon lofts were up underneath of it. I built these little homemade lofts. Any board I could find or bent nail I could straighten out. But the birds roosted right up. I slept on the floor back there, and when I could hear in the mornings the sun come up, I'd hear that cooing. It was right up underneath the birds would be, one 2x4, not a 2x4, but a floorboard underneath of me. And it was just like music to me, listening to those birds coo, and it still is. Every bird's got his own little personality. When you think of the history of the Sions, that just adds to the richness of them for the performance. That's why I put pressure on myself to make these an outstanding racers, because I don't want them to just say they're Sions. Oh, I just got Sions. I got Sions. That's what a lot of the guys, the few guys that do have Sions, that's all they say. I got Sions. They'll put on their pedigree, Paul Sion or Sion number 2 or got a Sion. They don't know what they got. And they just want to say it's a Sion, hoping that it'll sell. And they'll get $10 for it or whatever the hell they can get for it. Because it's a Sion. That's all they care. They really are not trying to do anything with the Sions. Nobody's taking them out $500 and $600 doing this stuff that I do with them. They're not entering them in the big races. Nobody's doing that. This is the only Sion loft in existence that does that. Right here. Let's head over to the next loft. All right, I'm in another loft. This is kind of the summertime loft right now. This loft will hold 40 birds pretty easy. And I'm getting ready to do a lot of work on this loft. I've had this loft a long time. It's another loft that John built. And I moved it when I bought the 5 acres. There's summertime and the Maltese Falcon. You saw them earlier, but there you see them at their house. And this has been their loft. And I've got 4 of their babies in here right now. That's a Maltese Falcon right there. And there goes summertime. The 4 babies you see in here are 2 late hatches from last year. Come here, big dog. There they are. There's a Maltese Falcon and his son from last year. And there's summertime. I've only got one other pair that's not 100% that blood in here, and that's what I call my dream pair. The two blue bars, that blue bar cock there, and this hen. Come over. That pair right there. That's a pair. It will be a pair. She'll never get into it. But I've only had them together for a couple of days. It's the only old bird pair in here. That's a pair of late hatches out of summertime and a Maltese Falcon with double yellow banded. You'll see that's what I want to fly down in the. I'm hoping that the 2 early babies that I raised this year turn out as good as they do. I want you to pay careful attention to the wonderful pigeons, these 2. I want you to look at her for a second. Look how far her wing comes down, almost out to the tip of her tail. It's like a basketball player that's got hands that come down below his knees. Common sense tells you when this hen flies, she's like a pelagic bird. It's a lot less effortless for her to fly with wings that are that long. You pull one wing out in ratio to her body size. Everything's, in ratio to the actual body itself. But she hasn't, without me touching that bird, I look at so many birds, I can see where their wings come down to. A lot of times the wings just come down to about where the black band is on the bar, on the bar of the blue bar, on the bar of the tail. But when I see barb wings coming out to the end of the tail, it's a rare thing. So an exception. And her brother, not quite like that, but he's a gorgeous bird too. And you'll see they're a perfect blend of summertime and the Maltese Falcon. The hen, I think, is going to have a lighter eye like her daddy. He's a lot like his dad too. They took after their daddy a little bit more than they took after the mama this time. That last set of babies they had, I sent them to California, and they were both more like their mother. And these are the 2 babies I raised in January this year. This month, I raised them in December. I got bands around December, around Christmas, and barely was able to get the bands on their body. These 2 are going to go to the Florida Derby. and I'm pretty sure it's a cock and a hen, and I'm pretty happy with them. I think they're going to represent the No Sweat Sions very well, and I hope people in the United States that are looking at my family of Sions and thinking that believing any of this horse manure about families pays close attention to see what my family of birds do in this strong competition down there. I'm anxious to fly them. That's two of them right there. They'll be representing most likely. I'm sure that's a cock and that's going to be a hen. You know, in the one loft races, there's a lot of stuff that's not transparent. And they don't talk too much about the young birds having eggs inside of them. But, you know, you've got 5,000 birds, 10,000 birds, and say half of them's hens and half of them's cocks. Well, you're going to have a lot of birds in that group. Hens are going to be developing eggs all the time. They're either going to be developing an egg or have an egg in them. Or have just laid an egg while they're being trained and while they're racing. And any of you guys that's ever flown birds, you know a pigeon's handicapped, seriously handicapped. You don't never fly a hen that's got an egg in her, unless you want to lose them. But I'm sure they load them right up and take them right on. You know, that's what happens in a one loft race. So there may be some advantages. I've always liked flying hens, but I think there may be some advantages in actually entering in a cockbird, because you're not going to be worried about that. And they say, well, the cockbird wears himself out chasing those hens, you know, strutting to them and mating them, fighting for them and all. But I'd still, though, he doesn't have the handicap seriousness of having, you know, an egg inside of him. So you just got to weigh a lot of things out. You got to hope if you do have a hen, you got to hope that doesn't happen to you. There's Summertime and the Maltese Falcon, the pair that I've talked about over and over and over. You know, that's my balance pair. There you go. I'll be in this wall here. You see all these roosts. I'm going to be cutting half of that wall out. I've already got an aviary built on the other side. I just haven't done it this winter. The aviary's already hooked up. But I'll be cutting that wall out. And so this is going to open up into another big aviary. And where you see this wall, right underneath those nest boxes, and those nest boxes are actually old. I work at a heat plant at Eastern, and we used to burn coal, and those things were those were buckets that picked up coal and took it up and dumped it out into our boilers eventually. We pick up coal and put it in a chute, and we'd go on a conveyor, and then the conveyor would take the coal and dump it. But those were the buckets used that would pick up the coal. They're made out of heavy plastic, and they threw them all away. I grabbed a few as they were being thrown in the garbage, and they make wonderful nest bows. Wished I had 1,000 of them. But again, I'm going to be knocking this wall out and also making a big aviary in here. So this little loft is going to have 3 large aviaries around it, you know, and I'm going to turn it into a really open air loft. It's got a wire floor in it, and so and this, well, I know it's going to be good. It's good already, but it's going to get better. There's my crew. Unless you shut that door.
Yeah.
Hey, one of the best things that's happened going on 68 years with pigeons has been right here, my grandson. Never thought when I was a little tiny boy I'd have my grandson helping me with my pigeons. And I tell you what, old guys that's got them, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm very blessed to have got to have experiences like that. And I guess that's it for me today.